suggesting he should say we're just acquaintances who happen to meet after a long time. Otherwise, things would get complicated. Though I'm not sure if he understood. Still, I should avoid getting directly involved. If I try to explain this already complicated situation myself, I'd just get caught up in Jicheng's wordplay and create more misunderstandings. But I'm somewhat grateful for Jicheng's intrusion. If it weren't for him, the hierarchy would have been settled right here. I still have a chance. I must gain the upper hand. That will make it easier to save her. I left the mart without looking back, but when I tried to call a taxi, I realized my phone was missing. Oh no, Ki-won's main phone was gone. I belatedly remembered that I had thrown it along with the plastic bag earlier when trying to protect Ki-won. I should go back and get it. It should still be there. Excuse me, you said your name was Min Ki-won, right? As I was thinking this and turning around, I saw white sneakers. Looking up, a mischievous face greeted me at eye level. I channeled Baek shooing away street vendors and gave him a cold look with half-closed eyes. What do you want? Hey, don't look so scary. I'm here to do a good deed. I just heard that she's not your girlfriend and you just happened to meet here. I'm sorry. Despite being an otaku, he's not uncomfortable around women at all. That's why real otakus always tease him, saying, "You're just pretending to be an otaku." Indeed, looking at him now, he's a strange character. He approaches without hesitation, completely different from how I trembled when first speaking to Ki-won. A good deed? Here, take this. He handed me a flat object. It was the main phone I had dropped earlier. My phone. That's a good deed, right? Yes, I suppose so. I'm grateful, but this guy tends to persistently dig in when he sees an opening. I heightened my guard and glared at Jicheng fiercely. Ooh, that look. It's not ordinary. I'll see it in my dreams. This jerk. Could he be the type who enjoys being stepped on? I thought he liked big-breasted older women, but is it the dominating type he's into? Just kidding. Since I did a good deed, can I ask one question? Let me hear it first. As I tensely waited for his question, he pointed to the back of the phone he had just handed me and said, "Where did you get this printed? It's so clean and well done, I'd like to use the same service." So it was an otaku question. As a piano otaku, I can't answer this. Come to think of it, what is this character drawn on the back of Ki-won's main phone? A girl with an accordion on her back. She looks just like a magical girl. The old-fashioned feel from those large eyes. Somehow the character looks older than Ki-won, but with my lack of otaku knowledge, I couldn't identify who it was. It's been so long I don't remember. Can I go now? That's a shame. Well, thanks for answering anyway. Jicheng fiddled with his trident-like bangs and stepped back. Looking in the direction he was heading, I saw Siwoo coming out of the mart. Give it back, you jerk. What do you mean, give it back? Are you a robber? I mean, give me the plastic bag. You said your ribs were broken. They're not broken. Wait, did the professor really say that? Yeah. He was exaggerating like crazy. So where are these broken ribs? Adam created Eve, but you couldn't create a girlfriend with yours. Have you been drinking? Just take it quickly. This guy doesn't even pretend to think twice about handing it over. When else would I put a lazy music student who doesn't practice to work? The two headed home, snickering. Siwoo's way of speaking is completely different from how he talks to me. But that's actually how guys typically talk to each other. He just becomes especially gentle when dealing with Ki-won. By the way, thanks to becoming Ki-won, I won't be able to talk to Jicheng for a while. Not being able to hang out with that idiot for some time. Fucking great. I'm dying busy with practice, and he keeps bothering me. When I ask him to book a practice room for me, he forgets and makes me waste precious practice time. As a classmate, he's rarely helpful, truly a good-for-nothing. Still, thanks to him, I was able to escape from Yoon-ji's shadow, so I'll stop criticizing him here. Driver, please take me to Hala Hotel. Namsan? Yes. All right, please fasten your seatbelt, Tilda. Let's go back. I need to have a serious conversation with MS. Maid. ****MS. Maid was visibly flustered by my sudden arrival without warning. How much longer are you going to tease me? This is a serious conversation. I rolled my eyes around, silently asking her to send the other maids away. All right. Just a moment. Soon she whispered to the other maids and sent them all out of the suite. The maids took off their aprons, received card-like objects from MS. Maid, and left the room giggling. It seems they've all been given a short break. You wanted to have an important conversation, right? MS. Maid returned, having removed her apron, apparently ready to have a calm discussion with me. We sat across from each other at the table, exchanging glances for a moment. Then MS. Maid spoke first. Try to guess my name, miss. A quiz all of a sudden? I hesitantly answered with what I knew. HK. That was all I had saved in my phone for MS. Maid's name. Hearing this, MS. Maid's eyes narrowed. She soon sighed deeply, with an expression of realization. I thought everything was fine since nothing happened for years. MS. Maid took out something she had hidden and pinned it to her chest. King HWI/housekeeper. It was a beautiful nameplate with an elegant gold-plated rose decoration. This was the first time I'd seen such a nameplate on her chest since meeting her this morning. Since this morning, you haven't called any of us by our proper names, have you? I guess not. This is bad. Has she already discovered that I'm not Min Ki-won but some strange guy who's taken her place? MS. Maid, why are you so perceptive? Shouldn't the first response normally be you must have lost your memory in an accident? I suppose you couldn't remember our names. I understand. The reason we all deliberately removed our nameplates was to check your condition. Yeah, I see. So MS. Maid already knew, huh? I was confused. Why is she accepting this situation so naturally? Could something similar have happened before? Your attitude toward us changed. You couldn't control Rika as usual. You looked flustered when you saw young Master Seon-hyuk anyway. There were many things that seemed off. I quietly waited for her next words. I was on the verge of uncovering Ki-won's hidden secret. Around this time of year, you would suddenly act strangely, as if you had become a different person. I thought everything was fine since it's been quiet for the past few years. But it seems that when you stayed out overnight yesterday, MS. Maid grasped my hands on the table with a sad expression. I'm sorry. I was unconsciously speaking in a way only I would understand. Ha! With a short sigh, MS. Maid soon brought a thick booklet. The title of the album-like book was truly remarkable. Adaptation Guide for the New Min Ki-won. What kind of title is that? You should read that from beginning to end. It'll be faster than me explaining 100 times. Oh, okay. Since she told me to read it, I will. Welcome to Miss Ki-won's body. Please don't be alarmed and read this page carefully. From the first page, challenging content greets me. You are the 26th visitor to this body. What? Chapter 18, The Person I Love. I'll read it, but I'm not sure about this. From the very first page, some challenging content greets me. Welcome to Miss Ki-won's body. You are the 26th visitor to this body. My body staggered as soon as I saw it. Hey, are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Just a bit dizzy for a moment. If it's too difficult, please let me know. You don't have to read everything today. No, I can read it all. Something scientifically inexplicable. The memories residing in this body were revealing the truth to me. I thought it was like a popular restaurant where anyone could drop by for a taste because it mentioned visitors in the introduction, but that wasn't it. Dissociative identity disorder. The maid quietly nodded. I see. Many things are starting to make sense now. Min Ki-won is the only daughter born from the union of world-renowned conductor Min Seok-hyun and pianist Margaret Hebler, who nearly won all three major competitions during her prime. She must have been exceptionally talented from birth. The piano performances that seemed merely well interpreted when I didn't know about Echlert now sound completely different with this knowledge. A genius girl who, not even 20 years old, understood most music and could manipulate any piece at will. That was Min Ki-won. Yet despite having such a daughter, the Min Seok-hyun couple rarely took Ki-won to public events. In spring, the young miss occasionally loses her existing personality and is reborn with a new one. You were quite surprised thinking you'd entered a stranger's body, weren't you? We were quite shocked too. Dissociative identity disorder. Moreover, there's no way to know when, how, or what kind of person she'll change into. This has happened 25 times so far. In other words, does this mean that the Ki-won I've been meeting all this time might not have been the same Ki-won? Can I ask something? Of course. That's why we made this book and arranged this meeting. Did she change in February this year too? No, that was the original young miss. She hasn't had another personality emerge in recent years. I see. Oh, what about when she was 6? You'll find that if you turn the page. Thank you. No. 1/8th birthday / the prickly young Miss No. 220 days after the first switch / the clingy young Miss No. 3. That's a relief. The Ki-won I've been seeing since February was real. And the Ki-won I saw when she was young was indeed the Ki-won I know. I was lucky after all. When we met again at the cafe and she didn't recognize me, I was genuinely worried that I might have met a different personality with no memories of me. I'm relieved now. No. 25 15th birthday / the young miss skilled with swords and black magic after age 15. No more alternate personalities appeared in Ki-won. And now, 4 years later, I've suddenly appeared in her. Only the young miss's parents and I, the housekeeper, know about this. I see. The other maids and staff just think the young miss has a diverse personality. But even you and her parents couldn't know for sure if I was a different person, right? She shook her head and smiled. The young miss and I have been friends since we were very young. If she couldn't remember my name, we had to assume a different personality had emerged. She has the consciousness of being Min Ki-won, but no memories of her surroundings. Various versions of Ki-won have surprised Kang Hwi like this. Anyway, please continue reading. You need to finish it to avoid major disruptions in daily life. Not all personalities were as compliant as me, right? When she was younger, it was terrible. Tantrums hitting. I even had a scar this big on my head once. Kang Hwi must have had a tough time too. But as she grew older, the changing personalities seemed to follow the young Mrs. mental maturity to some extent. So it was somewhat easier a few years ago. Recalling an unpleasant memory, Kang Hwi trembled and covered her face with both hands. Honestly, when the Black Dragon the Dark Master, Lady Echlert entered the young miss, I really didn't know what to do. Lady Echlert. PFFBFFD. I barely managed to hold back my laughter. The name Echlert, it's been used longer than I thought. After calming my heaving chest, I slowly read through the next section. There was the pre-marriage love story of Min Seok-hyun and Margaret Hebler that I knew well, and the story of Ki-won growing up with them. Next came stories about the people working for the Min family. Turning the page further, a familiar face appeared. Song Seong-hyuk, 20 years old, 1 year older than Ki-won. He first came to the Min family when he was about 8 years old. Margaret Hebler, then Margaret Min, first met Song Seong-hyuk when she went to an alternative school for a charity concert. They're like siblings. Different parents, different surnames, but they grew up like brother and sister. Before starting the concert, Song Seong-hyuk was standing blankly next to the piano on stage. Margaret asked him, "Do you want to play the piano?" And immediately afterward, he surprised her with an astonishing performance. An unbelievable level of accuracy and understanding of the music for an 8-year-old. He even possessed an exceptional talent for reinterpretation that was difficult for children that age to demonstrate. Having lived with the alternative school's only old piano as his family, he took Margaret's hand that day and became a member of the Min family. I think I understand why. Ki-won must have been able to play the piano. No, if she had practiced consistently, she could have become a world-renowned pianist comparable to Song Seong-hyuk. But her fatal flaw that made public activities difficult, dissociative identity disorder, held her back. Margaret seems to have cared for Ki-won in every way possible, but she couldn't suppress her desire to teach someone. That's why she brought Song Seong-hyuk home, to let Ki-won live her life freely, and to pass on her will as a classical pianist to Song Seong-hyuk. But Song Seong-hyuk never once mentioned that he was conductor Min Seok-hyun's adopted son, did he? You know quite a lot. Well, I looked into things. Maid Kang Hwi shrugged. Legally, he's not his son. He wasn't adopted. No, he's just the madam's student. I just had an absurd thought. So he could marry Ki-won self #992 who brought up this unnecessary thought was immediately executed. The other selves are loudly protesting. That was unavoidable due to young Master Seong-hyuk's opinion. What opinion? He said he didn't want to become famous riding on the coattails of Min Seok-hyun and Margaret Hebler. That jerk. He sure knows how to sound cool. In reality, he has the skills to back it up, becoming the winner of the Chopin competition 2 years later. So legally, this situation continues until he turns 25. The young master visits the young miss often, but he has his own separate living arrangements. Self #992 kept bringing up anxious thoughts, so I sent in a suppression team to crush him completely. Don't come out. Don't think unnecessary thoughts. We're in the middle of important information here. I turn the page again. The location of the mansion. Parents' contact information. Emergency contacts. The contact information for Kang Hwi, the housekeeper. Next, there was a long letter from the original Ki-won. Please read it. Maid Kang Hwi comforted me, telling me not to be afraid. I never dreamed that a meeting between a newly born personality and the original owner of the body would happen like this. Nice to meet you, No. 26. I'm Min Ki-won. I'll simply call myself No. 0. You must be confused and perplexed. But you're probably aware that you are Min Ki-won. Though we perceive ourselves as different entities, both No. 26 and No. 0 are me. Please keep that in mind before reading the rest. Anyway, you must have been surprised by this sudden situation? But don't worry. You just read the book, right? That's enough. Since childhood, I've occasionally lost my memories. But as it turns out, friends like you were borrowing my body during those times. At first, I was very afraid and scared. I spent nights crying, fearing that someone else was controlling my body and that I might disappear forever. But as years passed, I realized, though we perceive ourselves differently, we are all the same Min Ki-won. There was no reason to fear the friends who came to me one after another. In fact, each friend who visited had amazing talents. A friend who loved the violin, a friend who loved the flute, they were all so wonderful. So now I'm not afraid anymore. You are just another me, we were one from the beginning, and we'll always be together. This was content that could only be written after a girl who had experienced confusion for nearly 20 years had established her sense of self. She could have been mentally broken. I think it's thanks to the emotional support from her parents, Kang Hwi and Strelka, that she became the Ki-won she is now, not a completely shattered Ki-won. Well, because my body changed so frequently, outside activities became difficult. But I didn't just play around at home. I'll tell you what you need to do every day from now on, so please listen. You are me, and I'm you too. Understand? Of course, if it's bothersome, you can pass it off to Kang Hwi. Kang Hwi will gladly help. First, there's Strelka. Were you surprised at how big she is when you first met her? She's a Czechoslovakian wolfdog, half wolf, so she has good stamina and needs to play vigorously. She's a kind and gentle child, so don't be afraid and go running with her every morning as exercise. If she sees that you're getting tired, she'll probably slow down on her own. She's a clever girl. Next is Nothing. Sorry, I made it sound like there was a lot to ask, but there's not much specifically. But since it feels weird to write nothing at all below that, very large text was decorated with Key 1's dog drawings. I don't know what kind of men Key 1 know. 26 will be. But whatever it is, do what you want to do, what makes you happy. So do the things you've always wanted to do, and reflect on them deeply to feel happiness. Shake off all the annoying and tiring things and prioritize only your happiness and joy. But just one thing. Please understand this one thing. Gulp. I swallowed and turned the page. We've had someone we've liked for a long time. So please don't allow your body or heart to anyone else. This is the pure love that ever won from no one to know. 25 has maintained with one heart and mind. Since no 26 is also the same being as us, I believe you'll instinctively understand. Important information. Extremely important information has appeared. Chapter 19. Half and half. T1. A lot, but I'm not too worried about it. Because from me, 0, all the way to 25, we all had the same thoughts about the person we like. Since we confirmed it through multiple conversations, you can believe it. And probably you, 26, will think the same way. When you think about the person you like, only one person comes to mind, right? If you're not sure, think about it as you go about your daily life. I think there are hints everywhere. That person is actually much closer than you might expect. 0, Key 1. I think of you. Does that make Min Ki-won a narcissist? Nonsense. It's only complicated because Jung Si-woo interfered, and the thoughts from 1 to 25 must have been the same. Though the personalities differ, they're all based on the common self that is Min Ki-won. Why I came as number 26 remains a mystery. The person I like, by the way, you could at least properly tell me the name of the person you like. You're being too vague about it. Such a secretive girl. Anyway, that's all for 0 advice. Strangely enough, after switching with friends several times, I've become able to tell how long the next friend will live in my place. But it seems like you, 26, this part had an unusually long blank space. Finding it strange, I rubbed it with my hand and could feel very faint pen marks. A few years, maybe even longer. Does that mean I might live as Min Ki-won for the rest of my life? Then when will the original Min Ki-won return? Min Ki-won who left home. Come back, I'll return your home in 3 years. Without you, everything falls apart. But no matter how much I shouted in my mind, Ki-won wouldn't answer. Instead, the next sentence that caught my eye created an illusion of hearing Ki-won's voice in my head. Still, don't panic. You are Min Ki-won and so am I. We are all the same Min Ki-won. You don't have to think that you must act exactly like 0. You don't have to think that you must do your best in place of 0. It's okay not to think that way. 26. Your actions and words are all Min Ki-won. 0, 26. All of us are the same Min Ki-won. And this is just my opinion, but honestly, isn't 0 the one who leaves the strongest impression on others? I've never studied philosophy, so I'm not sure. From 0 PS. Just in case, I should mention that you absolutely must not do bad things like stealing. Even if supervision seems lax, our parents worry a lot and are watching 24 hours a day. Previously, Lady Eclair tried to escape in the middle of the night to meet her destined partner and attempted to stow away. She was caught at the airport and brought back. Those photos are still in the album. I hope such an embarrassing incident doesn't happen again. P.S.2. Strelka gets very lonely, so try to keep her indoors. Sometimes in winter, I hug her instead of a blanket when sleeping, and it's so cozy it helps me fall asleep. Though I often wake up with fur in my nose, she's very smart and uses the toilet properly and even flushes. Isn't that impressive? Sometimes she seems almost human, which can be startling, so be careful. Did I warn you about this before? P.S.3. Kang, we will probably tell you anyway, but one more thing. Strelka becomes more docile the more piano music she hears. If walking her becomes too difficult, try playing before going out. Well, that's if you, 26, can play the piano. Lovely girl Min Ki-won. Bright energy, positive and kind Min Ki-won. Everything I knew about her was contained in this long letter. I feel strange. I should be anxious about Ki-won disappearing forever because of me. Was I somehow persuaded by Ki-won while reading the letter? Why do I feel like I've truly become one with her? It feels like Ki-won is with me even though I can't see her. As Ki-won said, both 26 and 0. All are the same Min Ki-won? Because I'm just her 26th personality. But Young Si-woo's self-awareness is still intact. I still have memories recorded from Si-woo's perspective for the past 3 years. Even if Ki-won created a 26th personality resembling Young Si-woo, wouldn't it be impossible to bring memories from a future that doesn't exist yet? I don't fully understand this myself, but intuitively, my current state feels like a mixture that hasn't completely blended yet. When I think I am Young Si-woo, I identify as the person who was Si-woo. When I think I am Min Ki-won, I identify as Ki-won's 26th personality. I've known this for certain since reading Ki-won's letter. This probably happened after dying and waking up. From the moment I opened my eyes with Si-woo in the hospital, the evidence was consistently apparent in my attitude toward Young Si-woo. Indeed, looking back, it's strange. Imagine there are 2 identical men, and one of them is showing you embarrassing moments that make you want to crawl under a rock. Normally, you'd curse at the sight. Oh God, you embarrassing bastard, what are you doing? But I was the complete opposite, worried sick about the injured Young Si-woo. My surprise at becoming Min Ki-won was momentary, and soon after, I was more concerned about how to save Young Si-woo who would die 3 years later. Was that all because I needed to be kind and cheerful like Ki-won? Absolutely not. Even with conscious effort, there are limits. Anyone, regardless of age or gender, would curse first when faced with embarrassing history. But because I was mixed with Ki-won, I felt compassion first. Trying to understand everything would be a waste of time. Even the existence of multiple personalities isn't clearly explained by neuroscience. And on top of that, I've got post-death possession involved. I can't explain it to anyone, and even I can barely understand this supernatural phenomenon. Rather than getting lost in that, it's better to enjoy life as Zero Ki-won suggested. I don't know when, but I might have to vacate this room someday. Until then, I can live as I want without causing trouble for Ki-won. I want to save myself, Young Si-woo. I want to straighten out Si-woo's tangled life. I also want to play the piano. After all that struggle with no real results. Still want to play? Even if someone said that, I wouldn't separate from the piano until death. Isn't it like family? Could anyone accept being suddenly separated from their family? My determination to spend my life with the piano was the same whether in my passionate first year or in my 4th year when I was compromising with reality. I turned the page again with a faint smile. Then, autographs of masters that any musician would recognize began to appear one by one. What's this? Ah. From there, it's like an album, showing the young lady's accomplishments from 1 to 24. Each personality preferred different instruments. It was as if Ki-won had summoned different personalities to test which instrument she should choose as a lifelong companion. You know, the mindset required for each instrument is slightly different. So perhaps personalities 1 through 24 were the result of her trying to embody the perspectives of professional musicians she had seen in videos. It also feels like traces of Ki-won's contemplation, wondering what should I do with my life. when she had no clear life goal. Age 5. Started piano. Age 6. Started violin, flute. Age 7. Started viola, marimba. Age 8. Started cello, oboe, trumpet. It was amazing. Even with instruments she was holding for the first time, once she learned the fingering, she could play like someone who had practiced for months. Well, she would lose interest quickly too. She always played new instruments. Once she became somewhat proficient, her parents would send videos to famous masters for brief private evaluations. The evaluations were full of praise. Various masters expressed their desire to personally train Kiwon. However, Kiwon ultimately couldn't decide on just one and ended up playing all the instruments in an orchestra. The 25th personality even handled a real sword instead of an instrument. A conducting baton. Did she read some Magic Academy novel before the 25th personality emerged? It strongly gives the impression that she switched to a real sword after the conducting baton failed to produce magic when waved like a magic wand. Ah, your precious piano? I'm sick of music now. So I destroyed it. Dark Master Lady Eclair, at age 15, smashing the precious grand piano she received from her mother at age 6 with a real sword gifted by her father at 15. She abandoned music. But who's Lady Eclair? I don't know anything about that at 16. While playing her first arranged anime theme at 16, ironically, the manga and games that Lady Eclair had purchased became the catalyst for her discovery of subculture. The Eclair channel was established in 2020, exactly about 3 years ago. It seems to be right after Kiwon turned 16. Come to think of it, she occasionally handled other instruments too, didn't she? Although Eclair specialized in piano. Sometimes, whether out of boredom or for variety, she would combine videos of herself playing multiple instruments to create something like a mini orchestra. It might have been simply to showcase various character cosplays, but her skill with each instrument was remarkably impressive. Kiwon went through all the instruments in an orchestra, didn't she? At that moment, a new truth that young Siwoo alone could never have known began to emerge. Could it be that from 0 to 25, they all share knowledge and experience about music? The body's owner, 0, laid the foundation with piano. Other Kiwons built upon it with string and wind instruments. I can feel that Kiwon hasn't left and still exists in this body. This might be the foundation of 0 Kiwon, her piano personality. If so, if I, now united with her, play the piano, find your color. That's your graduation assignment. Could young Siwoo finally step into uncharted territory? I want to play the piano. My heart, frozen in the blizzard of reality, began to beat again. The young Siwoo of 3 years later was recapturing the passion he had when he entered school 3 years ago. Chapter 20, Lethal Even at a Glance. By the way. Yes. Are we planning to stay at the hotel indefinitely? That's not the case, right? I'd like to play the piano. Going to a studio every time seems inconvenient. Kang Wee shook his head with a smile. Don't worry about that. We've only been staying at the hotel temporarily since February. That's a relief. Besides, with Strelka around, it's better to move to a proper home soon. Ah, right. That's true. We can't keep leaving that poor wolf, who needs to run freely across wild fields, at a pet hotel forever. But why didn't you look into it earlier? The conditions were rather demanding. Conditions? Yes, miss. I mean, Miss Zero set some very difficult conditions a few years ago. There were land compensation issues, and even after construction began, it took some time for various reasons. Originally, we were supposed to move in this February, but due to circumstances with the construction company, it got pushed back to mid-April. Where is it located? Soon, Kang Wee brought a tablet and showed me a map. You specified this neighborhood. The geography was familiar no matter how I looked at it. The roads, buildings, everything was a place I recognized. Why you chose this place? Yes. The neighborhood is somewhat underdeveloped, but being along the Han River, there's considerable residential demand. So we proposed to the district office first to build a mixed-use residential complex where young artists could stay, not far from the main road leading to the Han River Bridge, close to where the U.S. military base used to be, and despite being riverside, quite an underdeveloped neighborhood. That's my neighborhood. Pop. Self-1 jumps out holding a large panel, smiling. See, I told you young Siwoo has potential. Why else would Ki-won want to get a house in this neighborhood? No, 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 no. Wait, calm down. My heart just beat incredibly hard. Did it almost stop? Anyway, I don't know. Calm down. Right, the building is going up. I can see it from our house. Even among Han Arts University freshmen, there was a lot of talk about applications being open for talented artists from across the country. It's just a 10-minute walk from my house. And it's right next to the cafe where I met Ki-won. The lower floors will have over 500 practice rooms freely available for future talented artists. The upper residential spaces will focus on soundproofing for musicians sensitive to noise, to provide comfort. That was the general plan. I invested in that plan. More precisely, you initiated it, and the master, as the foundation's chairman, approved it. So that was Ki-won's father and mother's work. February was the target completion date, but it got delayed until this month. Coming to Korea in February and then leaving it must have been to check on the reasons for the construction delay. The map on the tablet turns off, and an aerial view appears. As you can see, here in the corner of the mixed-use complex, there's something like a private house. That's where we'll be living from now on. Next to a large grass field for residents, I notice a spacious garden separated by a fence where Strelka can run around. I'm screwed. My heart won't stop racing. What is this? Was Min Ki-won really like that? Did she like me? Am I the destined match that all versions from 0 to 25 liked? Arg. I want to hear Ki-won's answer so badly. Please come back. And if you look here, our residence has a separate entrance. Huh? If you go straight this way, it's about a 2-minute drive to where young Master Sung-hyuk lives. Kang-hui smiles with absolutely no ulterior motive. It was even more heartbreaking because she truly seemed to have no intention behind her words. It should be convenient for weekend outings. Young Master comes to pick you up every time, after all. 2 minutes by car, 10 minutes on foot. Almost the same distance. Self-992, who's been shot in the head, smiles and recites one English sentence, and despair crushes hope. Special thanks, Son H. Ki-won, who mastered all instruments before returning to piano, eventually grew attached to and settled on the Accord channel. Was it really because she enjoyed playing piano? Or was it because she enjoyed creating the channel with Song Sung-hyuk? Legally, and as promised to Min Seok-hyun, Song Sung-hyuk is just an acquaintance, not Ki-won's brother, until 5 years later. That bastard definitely patted Ki-won's head so casually. Self-1, who's been fidgeting around, appears. Claiming it's still unknown, he hits #992 with a panel printed with Siwoo's face. The rest of my selves start opening popcorn as if watching an entertaining spectacle. The atmosphere was already like a coliseum. Ah, damn it. This rotten world of selves, I can't even purge them. Ki-won said I'd understand if I thought about it carefully. Assuming I'm half Ki-won, maybe I could figure out the answer too, so I closed my eyes and tried to recall both people alternately. Song Sung-hyuk. Aside from being a bit awkward with Korean and therefore speaking briefly, there's nothing wrong with his character. A man living in his own world with a somewhat sleepy expression. He's known Ki-won since they were 8, and though they lived separately, they've been as close as real siblings. In 2 years, he's set to become a global star by winning the Chopin competition. Even as a freshman this year, he's already captivated all the piano professors at Han Arts University, a supernova from Austria. Usually with messy hair, but when entering competitions he neatly combs it back. The dramatic transformation from his usual look surprised everyone at his arts high school in Austria. The more I consider each point, he's too perfect. An overwhelming sense of inferiority torments young Si-woo's self-consciousness. Still, I need to make the comparison. Next is me, young Si-woo. My physique and physical capabilities aren't much different from Song Sung-hyuk's, but I'm at a disadvantage in hand size, which is important for piano playing. I first met Ki-won when we were 6. But apart from playing together at the playground for a few months then, we had no contact until meeting again recently. When we met again at the cafe, she asked who I was. I was almost completely forgotten. 3 years from now, I'll still be a student at Han Arts University. Unable to complete the graduation assignment given by Professor Baek. After graduation I'll likely become an unknown lesson teacher, church accompanist, or personal broadcaster. I always keep myself neat. As for appearance, when I look in the mirror after showering, I think I look perfect enough. Eric, I groaned, clutching my chest. What's wrong? Are you sick? No, it's nothing. The accumulated damage to my heart was almost fatal. The more I compare, the more critical hits I take. Song Sung-hyuk, this inferiority complex maker. Why are you so perfect? It's irritating. Self #992 Snickers. Looking at the arena, I see #1 pinned under him. Wake up. Anyone can see Ki-won likes Song Sung-hyuk. Accept reality. I guess that's right, but #1 hasn't given up yet. He jumps up and beats #992 with a panel. Stop. Young Si-woo's face is getting crumpled. No, it's split in two. I never knew the cheering of my other selves could be so annoying until today. Let me clear my mind. Ki-won will slowly reveal the answer. I'm not running away because I'm afraid Song Sung-hyuk might be the answer. Now is not the time. It's not. Destroy the Colosseum. Everyone out. Can we? Yes. We're friends, right? Yes. Of course. Facing her as she tilted her head in confusion, I, still with lingering attachment, threw the remaining Colosseum fragments. Tell me, who do you like? Is it Song Sung-hyuk? After all, startled, Kang Wee grabbed my shoulders and tried to reason with me gently. That, I don't know. Why? Because I don't know. No, how can you not know? You said you're monitoring me. It doesn't make sense that you don't know. You must know everything I do. Who I hang out with. Where I go on dates. You must know, right? Thinking words weren't getting through, Kang Wee lightly chopped my head with the side of her hand. We monitor you because we're worried something might happen. Not to dig into your private life. So if you don't tell us, we don't know about your romantic progress. Everyone on the surveillance team refrains from making their own assumptions. A bell rings. Goal. Finally, some sense returned to me. Besides, you hardly ever left the house, right? The people you met when you did go out were always the same. But at the mention of meeting the same people, my regained sanity flew away again. It's Song Sung-hyuk. There's one more person from the ruins of the collapsed Colosseum. Pop. #1 pokes his head out and says, "See, I told you there's still hope." You mean Si-woo? Yes. #992 starts throwing fragments wildly, saying not to talk nonsense. He seems to recognize the crisis. Just so you know, I was eavesdropping outside the house yesterday. It was the first time the miss spent the night at someone's house with her personality changed, so we were worried and had no choice. It was just me listening, so don't worry too much. I didn't record anything. I jumped up and stomped on #992. Say that again. I'm sorry. Yesterday I had to eavesdrop. No, not that. What was a first? Kang Wee scratched her cheek with a troubled expression. It was the first time you stayed overnight at a friend's house. And the first time you fell asleep so comfortably while staying out. You always needed Strelka or me beside you to fall asleep anywhere but home. From under the collapsed ruins, rumbling. The buried selves began to rise simultaneously. On their t-shirts were printed all sorts of photos of young Siwoo. Really? Chapter 21, Hold on tight. What is this feeling? Suddenly, my self-esteem is soaring, and I feel fearless. Do you see, Song Seong-hyuk? This is the difference between you and me. Wait a minute. But it wasn't Ki-won who stayed at Siwoo's house, it was me. Even though I'm currently in a half-half Ki-won state, I was the one who practically dragged him there and made him sleep, right? My inner selves began throwing off their Jeong Siwoo printed t-shirts as if on cue. Just when I thought I'd scored one victory, I was so focused on beating Song Seong-hyuk that I didn't think about what really matters. Complete destruction. Jeong Siwoo, total defeat. Cold game. Song Seong-hyuk's perfect victory. Oh, that's when it happened. Come to think of it, I forgot to show you this. Kang Hwi pulled a thin wallet from his pocket and handed me a business card. Kang Hwi Cultural Foundation K-PAC Chairman / Kang Hwi Ha. K-PAC. Mom, you startled me. K-PAC. Kang Hwi Cultural Foundation. Made Kang Hwi. I see, no wonder the name sounded familiar. You're the chairman here? Is this maid standing before me really the owner of the foundation that has supported me since childhood through the professor's introduction, all the way through college? Yes. Then why are you working as a maid? Not just a maid. I'm properly a housekeeper. Housekeeper to help me understand my confusion. Kang Hwi turned on a tablet's drawing app and created several diagrams. We have a rather unique family structure. You could say we follow an old-fashioned system. That's true. Having a Victorian maid in the house is extraordinary to begin with. The mistress can't manage all the household affairs herself, can she? She has her own career. That's right. That's why there's a housekeeper. I get it. A personal secretary for the mistress. Just dressed as a Victorian maid. Well, in my case, I've only been a housekeeper for a few months. But in Korea, I'm second in power only to the young miss. So technically, Ki-won is the Korean branch manager of the Min family, and Kang Hwi is her direct chief of staff. Judging by his squared shoulders and raised chin, he seemed quite proud of his position. But well, while I am the chairman, the young miss actually owns all the foundation shares. I'm essentially a figurehead. Why go to such lengths because I'm a minor? No, that's not related. It's because the young miss's name can't be revealed. That's why I became the chairman. Wait, a thought suddenly occurs to me. Was there someone who recommended me to be managed as a foundation prodigy? Ding dong dang. Miss 26 is really quick-witted. Who was it? Kang Hwi scrolled through the tablet and showed me a prodigy file with someone's photo. As soon as I saw the familiar face, my inner self-1 suddenly began to grow larger. Surprised by its size, my other inner selves hurriedly picked up the discarded Jeong Siwoo t-shirts and put them back on. If Min Ki-won were listed as K-PAC chairman, Jeong Siwoo would find out. Then he would discover her feelings for him. So, she deliberately registered Kang Hwi as chairman to sponsor me. A beaming smile broke out on my face without me realizing it. Feeling Kang Hwi's stare, I cleared my throat repeatedly and lowered my head. Calm down. I've only just reached the same starting line as Song Seong-hyuk. Everyone, take off your t-shirts. Why did she recommend me? I want to know Ki-won's true feelings. Read it. The mistress added some details, but the young miss wrote the base herself. I quickly scrolled down through the registered prodigy file displayed on the tablet. Recommender, Margaret Hebler. Reasons for recommendation. 1. Solid fundamentals that are hard to believe come from an elementary school student, and the expectation of growth based on them. At a young age, he has reached the level of a high school piano prodigy with over 10 years of study, and his memorization speed is faster than any prodigy I've seen. He shows innate talent in adjusting phrasing and fingering, clearly recognizing the limitations of his hand size. We can expect quick adaptation to physical changes during his growth. While typical pianists of his age distinguish dynamics in about 5 levels, Jung Si-woo controls dynamics with at least 10 levels of gradation. This varies depending on the videos or recordings he references before playing, as he seems to almost perfectly reproduce the performance style of the referenced performer. If he can incorporate his own color, he could compete with famous pianists worldwide even before reaching adulthood. 2. His attitude toward the piano and overflowing affection for music. Clear goals. While prodigies of his age often practice diligently to meet their parents' expectations, Jung Si-woo plays the piano solely for his own satisfaction. To become an excellent performer, he'll need to be taught how to connect with audiences step by step. Considering that most prodigies fail to reach great heights due to mannerism and loss of interest during their growth, Jung Si-woo's strong passion seems to be sufficient fuel to keep him working tirelessly for the next decade or so. Above all, I was impressed by his ambition to become the best maesba player in Korea. To share my impression of Jung Si-woo's performance, who wants to become Korea's France Liszt. Though he makes many mistakes due to his small hands, despite missing notes, he tries his best not to make mistakes in rhythm or dynamics control. After reading it all, I was dumbfounded. You said she added some details. There's no way Ki-won could have written such an evaluation by herself. Besides, I was 12 at the time, which means Ki-won was 11. Wasn't that when she was still immersed in playing and appreciating music? That's right. Well, it was more than just some ah-ha-ha. Kang Hwi smiled awkwardly while rubbing the back of his neck. I'd like to see the original. Well, I don't know where the original is. The young miss only told me bits and pieces. That's fine too. Lost in thought, she slowly recited one sentence at a time. 11-year-old Ki-won's impressions of my performance. So I think -1 was he plays better than me and -2 was I want to keep hearing this performance in the future, was it? Boom! The suite, the entire hotel, this world, the universe fell into silence. Inner self -1, larger than the sun, floats in the black space. The face of Jung Si-woo printed on this t-shirt is bigger than Earth. I'm receiving cosmic signals. Want to keep hearing it. 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 Forever. By my side. Keep hearing it. Arg. Eek. Why are you screaming suddenly again? Time reversed and the Colosseum was rebuilt. I crushed inner self -1 using the crowd. Too much, this is too much. Where did the me who mocked Jung Si-woo saying, "Are you planning to have 3 kids with him?" Go. I have no right to mock anyone. How can I mock others when I'm fantasizing like crazy myself? Draw me a bath. You want to bathe again? Yes. Quickly. Draw it quickly. With trembling hands, I picked up my main phone. I need to calm down. I need a peace that will bring peace to my mind. I feel like I'm about to have a heart attack and hyperventilate. Boss air on the G string. Gounod's Ave Maria. Not calming enough. Should I forcibly bring a gentle sadness to my heart? How about Chopin's Nocturne? Is it too shameful and materialistic to borrow the master's power now? But I can't do without you, master. I feel like I'm going to collapse. Ding. One secret mode notification. Secret mode. Curious, I tapped it, and the screen appeared asking for a password. Secret mode. Yoon Jae-chang had told me about this before. It's like a hidden folder on a computer. Hidden folder? You know how nowadays everyone watches porn online, but our ancestors used to download it. Hey, people can hear you. Lower your voice. Anyway, if you just put it in any folder, it's easily found, right? So you hide it completely so it's only visible if you set it to show hidden folders. A mode designed for really important things or files, photos, messages you don't want others to accidentally see. Essentially a vault within Key One's main phone that can't be accessed without going through additional security verification. Wondering if it might use the same password as the subphone, I tried entering 0409 again. The lock was released, and the push notification appeared properly. One message from Hyokseong Song. I immediately apologized to Master Chopin. I'm sorry for showing such an unseemly side of myself just now. Hyokseong Song, the cosplay costume company, asked for a visit. Hyokseong Song, they said the next costume has many parts, so they want you to try it on once before completion, so he helped with the costumes too, not just the venue rental. I did think it was strange that there were no business contacts if Key One had prepared the costumes herself. Wait a minute. What piece to play each week, which character to cosplay as? Did Song Seong Hyuk decide all of that too? Hyuk Seong Song, have you decided on the next piece? Hyuk Seong Song, if not, I have a recommendation. It wasn't that there were no exchanged messages. I just didn't know about secret mode, so I couldn't check them. The conversations with Song Seong Hyuk, discussions about Channel A Cleared, continued endlessly as I scrolled up. Wow. The rapidly scrolling screen stopped somewhere around 2021. I didn't have the courage to check messages exchanged with Song Seong Hyuk from even earlier, because I felt that the moment I saw them, I would have to admit I was the loser. Even inner self #992, who had been mocking me all this time, was now comforting me, and inner self #1 in this moment. Master Chopin, I'll change my selection. Instead of Nocturne, I think Winter Wind would be better. Chapter 22, Sob Beethoven Piano Sonata No. 14. Moonlight. After the maestro's death, a critic described the first movement as resembling a boat floating on a moonlit lake, giving it the nickname Moonlight that persists to this day. But this piece isn't as romantic as one might think. Hearing deteriorating for unknown reasons. Love thwarted by family issues. 1 year after composing Moonlight in 1802, Maestro Beethoven wrote a suicide note, contemplating taking his own life. That's how deeply he had fallen into despair at the time. The moonlight reflected on the lake wasn't a brilliant blue, but a blood moon. Crimson red. The maestro created this song while enduring such terrible despair. It was a moment when the maestro, who typically challenged contemporary musical grammar with his experimental spirit, dissolved his raw emotions directly into sound. First movement. This could be a moonlit lake between mountain ridges, or a lake in a deep underground cave barely touched by filtering light, or perhaps a windless field filled with the scent of despair. I sat with one leg folded under me, tilting a half-empty bottle of alcohol. I struggled to express difficult, unresolvable emotions, but no voice came out. A suffocating tightness. No matter how loudly I tried to shout, nothing emerged, nothing was conveyed, nothing was expressed. Listen, someone please listen to me. Please. In that moment, I realized. It wasn't my throat that was wrong. The world had stopped speaking to me. I was being ostracized by the world. I was the oblivious one. I jumped to my feet. I ran and ran across the field, to the cliff visible in the distance. I threw myself toward the flowing water below. I, the oblivious one, would erase my own existence. Ugh! A falling sensation jolted me awake. When I opened my eyes, I was in Kangwi's arms. Are you all right? I almost fell out of bed. I shouldn't have fallen asleep with the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata on repeat. I wonder how many hours I've been listening to it. The endlessly melancholic tone of the first movement suddenly transitions to an unexpectedly cheerful mood in the brief second movement. I've always felt this part resembles the final stage of grief acceptance. After endless depression comes acknowledgement, recognition, understanding. These emotions naturally lead to emotional recovery. However, Anyone who has listened to the entire Moonlight Sonata knows that an enormous wave of emotion follows. Yes, this is merely my interpretation, but I believe Maestro Beethoven tried to accept it all, but when he couldn't, he returned to anger in the third movement, after going through all 5 stages to reach acceptance. When understanding proved impossible, a second explosion occurs. It's like when you have a big fight with someone, calm down, and then minutes or days later suddenly think, wait, how the hell was that my fault? This is infuriating. The third movement of Moonlight is an elegant depiction of that feeling. Anyway, at times like this, I need to sit at the piano and play the third movement. Just as Maestro Beethoven did, I too must release my emotions through music rather than curses and anger. I want to go out. What? So suddenly? Prepare outfit number 4. Ah, yes. Everyone. With a clap of hands, the waiting maids rushed in. Held in Kangwi's arms like a princess, I was carried to the bathroom without protest. Swoosh! How's the water temperature? Colder. You'll catch a cold. It's fine. Cold water. Shampoo. Scrub, scrub. Something slippery and fragrant. Pat, pat. My hair twisted up and capped. A sponge ticklishly scrubbing my body. MMPH. Still half asleep, the sensations felt strange. I should have said I'd wash myself. Why did I just stay still? But it's too much trouble. I want to get ready quickly and go play the piano. Otherwise, I might end up hitting song Sunghyuk instead of piano keys this Sunday. I endured the ticklish feeling, waiting for the body wash to rinse off. My hair came down from under the cap. Another swoosh of water. I tried to let all thoughts wash away with the cool water, but the anger wouldn't subside. I need to get out quickly, quickly. Since they've been taking care of Kiwon like this for quite some time, the preparations were finished in no time. They say women take an hour to bathe. With teamwork, it didn't even take 30 minutes. Let me know if it's too hot. Okay. On one side, they dried my hair. On the other, they busily selected clothes. When my hair was dry, a makeup bag opened. Nice-smelling cream was massaged into my face. This feels nice. I want to live like this forever. I wish someone would bathe me, feed me, and put me to bed every day. No, still. I hope Kiwon comes back. Skirt pants, an oversized shirt, and a thin knit. How do you like it? When I opened my eyes, a fresh spring-scented girl with barely their makeup sat in front of the mirror. How lovely. Despite having mature features for her age, these clothes suit Kiwon well. Add a backpack and she'd look just like the female freshman at our school. Is it the power of makeup? Though nothing seems drastically different, there's a subtle change that makes her look gentler, which is fascinating. That's interesting. Is this a skirt or pants? Both. After seeing how you spread your legs yesterday, I figured you're in commander mode this time. Prepared just in case. No matter how careful I am, I'm bound to make mistakes. Yet they're already protecting Kiwon's image like this. Kangwi is definitely a genius. I smiled and gave a thumbs up. I'll be going then. Take care. With the maid's farewell, I left the hotel. Getting into the taxi I'd called through an app, the driver chuckled when he saw the preset destination. Oh my, are you a student at Hanai University of Arts? Former student, actually. Too bothersome to explain, so I just nodded. Not running late for school? No. That's good. I'll get you there safely. What's this? If I were late, would he transform into a bullet taxi with triple boosters? Normally, taxi drivers wouldn't even talk to me. Strangely, since becoming Kiwon, these brief conversations seem more frequent. Or maybe I just don't take taxis often enough to know what's normal. Piano piano. I closed my eyes and thought about the third movement of the Moonlight Sonata. Placing my hands on imaginary keys, ta-da-da-dak, ta-da-da-da-dak. I did this the entire bridge crossing, but the urge wouldn't subside. There's no tactile feedback. No flow between the piano and me. Ugh, it's frustrating. Mister. Yes. Please go as fast as possible. The driver looked at me through the rearview mirror and asked, "Seatbelt on, right?" Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The taxi, having driven as fast as legally possible, dropped me off in front of Hana University. Inhale. Ah. This air filled with musical notes. Exhale. Dance seniors rehearsing on the lawn while sipping coffee. Minstrels with violins and cellos who couldn't contain their passion and rushed outdoors. I feel alive again the moment I return. I really am crazy, aren't I? After all that practice, in the end, this is the only place I want to return to. Well, it can't be helped. As far as I know, Hana University is the closest place where a non-affiliated person can easily access a grand piano. Since they're such expensive instruments, the downside is constant surveillance cameras. But who cares? As long as I can play. Above all, the best part is that it's always professionally tuned for whoever might visit. With Ki-won's wealth, buying a piano would be nothing. But with only a few weeks until moving into the new house, and just wanting to briefly satisfy an urge, it seems excessive to go piano shopping. Third movement. I ran like someone possessed. The thought of dancing across the keys already excited me. Despite playing piano for so long, I still find it thrilling and enjoyable. Piano really is the best. Long before reaching Baek Junjin Hall, where the grand piano was located, I must have mentally bowed to the professor about 200 times in gratitude. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for donating the piano. Thank you for allowing public access. Thank you for hiring professional tuners for constant maintenance. Hooray! Piano! With a loud shout, I flung open the heavy doors of the hall. Because of the freely accessible grand piano, the waiting line gets quite long after noon. But mornings are fine. Probably no one will be. Someone was standing by the piano. And it was someone I knew. Oh my. A bob cut with one side tucked behind the ear. Pointed eyelashes reminiscent of an idol and sparkly makeup. A beauty mark under the left eye and somewhat fierce gaze. A strange habit of holding a violin neck limply while pressing the bow against her forehead as if praying. I sensed trouble and tried to escape, but... Wait. Eek. Before I could turn around, the woman by the piano ran over and jabbed the door's soundproofing cushion with her bow. Do you know how to play piano? Up close, her sharp eye corners looked even more breakable. Ki-won's chest isn't small by any means. But this woman leaning against the wall is even more endowed. I don't know how. With a cunning smile, the woman moved closer. Even between women, you're too close, you crazy girl. Lies. You came to play piano, right? You shouted piano. When you came in, it echoed through this small hall. Damn, I wanted to play the third movement. No choice once my house is built. I can play piano there exclusively. But I was planning to visit the school occasionally anyway to keep an eye on young Siwoo. Now that I've shown my face, pretending not to know her is impossible, so let's go with Plan R. I've been thinking about this since deciding on revenge after becoming Min Ki-won. How to get deliciously sweet revenge. Ugh, it's fine if you can't play well, just help me for a moment. I don't want to. Hey, that's right. This woman intimidating me with her cool voice, dressed neatly in a navy dress that matches her black hair, is none other than, please help me tilde, okay? The villainous Yoon Ji-yu. I pretended to whimper in a small voice. Hick Chapter 23, A Gentleman's Revenge is Never Too Late, even if it takes 3 years. Yoon Ji-yu, 21 years old, 1 year older than me, and the top student in her second year at the Korean National University of Art's violin department. A young, talented violinist who will be leaving for Tokyo in a few weeks to attend the preliminary auditions for the Paganini competition. And in my opinion, the worst of the worst among villainesses who thoroughly exploits people to the bone, regardless of gender, if she can use them. She's had countless people enchanted into donating their talents, and after placing second in the Paganini competition, she naturally became the subject of gossip several times. However, there was neither reflection nor apology. It wasn't a massive scandal that required such actions, and she genuinely didn't realize what she had done wrong. Her agency also made tremendous efforts to protect her, working hard on image making and PR management. She exploits both men and women indiscriminately. But perhaps because men are easier to manipulate, most of her victims were male students. Her main tactics were the honey trap and physical seduction. Of course, since these didn't work on everyone, she sometimes employed malicious gaslighting as well. Gaslighting was particularly effective against women, they say. Starting with compliments like "you're really amazing," she would build rapport, then subtly make requests with "you'll help me, right?" to condition them. Once the target resignedly surrendered, from that moment on, she would use them however she pleased. In a way, she could be called a genius of psychological warfare. Not only does she have talent with instruments, but she's also linguistically gifted. Seeing how her brother Yoon Jae-chang is also silver-tongued, it must be an identity inherited from their parents. Of course, there were accompanists she desperately needed who wouldn't easily fall for her schemes, like me or Song Seong-hyuk. To break through that blind spot, Yoon Jae-yu, this woman, enchanted me by bringing up Ki-won. "I'm super good at getting along with people, so I'll help you, Si-woo. What do you think?" Deceived by her promise to help him get closer to Ki-won if he helped with her competition preparation, young Si-woo assisted Yoon Jae-yu even at the expense of his own practice time and competition preparation. For several weeks, I was indeed able to meet Ki-won more frequently than usual. Thinking it was thanks to Jae-yu's help, I put even more effort into preparing for her competition. I remember that in September, a month before the competition, I devoted about half of my waking hours to helping with her competition. And finally, the truth was revealed. "Oh my, you found out? I thought a coward like you would never dare ask Min Ki-won." "That's right. I didn't do anything. I don't even know her. You were just lucky." She had specified dates when I could meet Ki-won with high probability, who had always made me anxious with her random appearances. But Ki-won was visiting that cafe more frequently than expected. She had framed it as if our meetings were coordinated by her when I could have met Ki-won without going on those specific days. Yoon Jae-yu knew that foolish me wouldn't directly ask Ki-won, so she exploited my feelings for months. Of course, I might be the fool for being deceived. But it happened to be during a period when I had lost nearly 3 months due to a rib injury and was suffering from anxiety and unease. Piano and Min Ki-won. My health, which I didn't want to lose along with those two, deteriorated further during those few months of torment from Yoon Jae-yu. "Si-woo." "Yes, Professor. For now. Go home and rest. I'll consider finding an alternative way for your second semester assignments." The first year's second semester ended without me properly completing my assignments. Within a year, my peers had gone far ahead of me. Until March of the following year, when new freshmen arrived, I spent more time in practice rooms than at home, desperately clinging on like a madman. But there was more regression than progress, more loss than recovery. And the culmination of it all was Ki-won's return to Korea. "I'm sorry, there's something I need to take care of at home. I wanted to stay here longer." "I'm sorry." There was no malice in her. I could tell from her expression that it was something important. But when the only pillar supporting my difficult life disappeared, I began to crumble like a sandcastle before the waves. And so, 1 year, 2 years passed. Only when my usually prickly professor began expressing concern for me did I finally choose to compromise with reality. And not long after gaining this realization, I lost my life in an accident. 3 years that started happily but remained depressing throughout. That's the only way I can describe it. Sit down. What's with the Sit down quickly. Yes, despite my grand words, Plan R is simply a revenge plan. By turning Yoon Jae-yu's personality and characteristics against her. A method to shock her and bring her despair. Honestly, I don't expect to give her an overwhelming sense of defeat this way. She has an absurd mentality where she inflicts lasting psychological wounds on others, yet quickly bounces back from her own hardships. But that doesn't mean I can give up on revenge. She used naive me and flew away on her own wings. I must make the back of her head sting, this woman who returned betrayal for consideration and respect. Here, just turn it like this. How much time do you need to look at the sheet music? I want to play something else. Yoon Jae-yu gave me a stern look to intimidate me slightly, then spread her hands toward the hall and said, "There will be a line of students waiting here soon. If an outsider like you is hogging the piano, don't you think someone might give you the cold shoulder? It's been a while since I've experienced this gaslighting. Just hearing it makes my nerves stand on end. I'll cover for you. After all, I'm the top student in the second year of the violin department. So please help me a little," I mumbled, fidgeting with my lips while grazing the piano keys. "Are we friends?" "Yes, yes. Thank you so much. I knew you'd help." As instructed by her malicious younger brother who wishes for his sister's downfall, I acted like an excessively timid girl. My sister is surprisingly careless when dealing with herbivores. Really? She seems to tear into everything thoroughly. No. You know those people who are obviously thinking, wow, this is so easy. She doesn't suspect much even if they do something suspicious. She pushes hard because she knows they'll eventually listen to her anyway. I flipped through the iPad about the size of a notebook, scanning the sheet music. Saint-Saëns, Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso. A violin-piano duet that captures Spain's passionate sensibility while also incorporating Italy's bright capriciousness. The violin that begins seems slightly melancholic, but the piece calmly embraces the audience's inner self, gradually revealing its hidden energy. After the introduction, like the sound of shoes sliding across a solid marble floor moving forward, the violin begins to reveal its blazing true colors. The piano supports from behind, quietly but firmly. This piece is Yoon Jae-yu herself. A dynamic and passionate Spanish dance. A dancer in a blood-red dress twirling on stage. Someone who is only satisfied when all eyes are on her. It's the self-assertion of a woman who has lived her entire life in the spotlight. After building that trust, then you snatch away the man my sister likes. Wouldn't that be a huge shock to her? Your sister doesn't seem like someone whose mental state would crumble over something like that. No, this would be a critical hit. Why? She's never lost in the game of seduction before. Even if she doesn't show it on the outside, she'll be boiling with rage inside. Yoon Jae-chang said he was eagerly anticipating the expression on Yoon Jae-yu's face at that moment. He had been waiting and waiting for the day this operation could be carried out. So where and how do you plan to find this timid-looking woman for this operation? That's for you to figure out from now on. You crazy bastard. Unfortunately, women suitable for the operation were rare. The conditions were too demanding. Someone with a gentle impression who appears somewhat weak when lowering her eyebrows, yet skilled enough at piano to provide accompaniment that would satisfy the demanding Yoon Jae-yu. And also close to Song Seong-hyuk, the man Yoon Jae-yu has been unable to obtain and resents. How could finding such a woman be easy? This is a heaven-sent opportunity for revenge, of course. T1 herself is far from the timid girl we expected. But the current me. In this half-and-half Ki-1 state, it's possible. The grown-up Young Si-woo had overcome his past timidity and matured, but still kept that former self hidden somewhere in his heart. The finishing touch. Now I've become the perfect girl to fill the vacant lead role in this well-orchestrated unit. I can't know exactly what relationship Song Seong-hyuk and Min Ki-1 have. But if she's helping him run a channel that's kept secret from everyone, well, she would surely grant a request to hang out for a while. Just by appearing together and showing we're close, Yoon Jae-yu will be furious to the tips of her hair. If it were any other time it might not matter, but at this point, with an important competition coming up in October, the impact would be significant. Of course, I might get angry too, but thinking about it again, all the messages exchanged between Song Seong-hyuk and Ki-won were strictly work-related. I'd need to dig deeper into the past to know for sure, but it seems more like a dry business partnership than a romantic interest. It has to be. This is absolutely not me speaking out of personal interest. Are you not done yet? Jay, just a moment. Almost there, sure, Tilda. She's pressuring me, asking if I'm still not ready. This is a kind of test Yoon Jae-yu conducts to find an accompanist she likes. Although she picked me somewhat randomly as a substitute, I've already accepted her request to accompany her despite her being a bit forceful. She's trying to figure out what kind of person I am, whom she met by chance. How skilled I am. This is the assessment stage. When I first prepared to accompany, it took me about 5 minutes to look at the sheet music. Then Min Ki-won should take less time. Let's say 4 minutes. Under the same conditions, to make Yoon Jae-yu choose me over Young Si-woo. To prevent her from unnecessarily extending her clutches toward busy me. And I need to make her gradually depend on me. For the sake of thorough revenge. 58, 59, 60. After counting exactly 4 minutes, I flipped back to the first page of the sheet music. I'm ready. Yoon Jae-yu raises her eyebrows, subtly showing her surprise. And she's taken the bait. Chapter 24, Big Catch. Your voice is too loud. Ugh. You need to come in stronger there. It's your solo part. Ugh, wait. Don't rush ahead. The violin should stand out. Don't change the flow as you please. If you want to score a 0 on a test, there's something you need to prepare in advance. That would be an overwhelming amount of studying. Start preparing several weeks ahead. Enter the exam room with the momentum to score 100 points. Then calmly sit down, choose all the correct answers, and at the end mark the number next to each one instead. Simple, right? This isn't helping at all. I'm sorry, no need to apologize that much. Let's try again from the beginning. Certainly, Yoon Jae-yu makes a remarkably good first impression. Despite her intimidating appearance, this attitude of understanding with an open mind confuses people. That's why many people fall for her. Get used, then discarded. Watch carefully. Yoon Jae-yu came closer and turned the sheet music page by page, pointing out each part where I had deliberately made mistakes. Here, you played too strongly. Here, too weakly. Here, wait a bit before starting. Listen to my sound and wait. Here, you need to put more energy into it. If you just die out, there's no point in having a duet. As expected of a skilled violinist. She's worthy of placing second in the international violin competition named after Niccolò Paganini, who was called the violinist who sold his soul to the devil. Yes, I'll try my best. But how should I put this? Yoon Jae-yu lightly touched the back of my hand and asked, Are you perhaps very nervous? Your fundamentals seem solid, but you're making a lot of mistakes. I snatched my hand away in surprise. And no, this is just my actual skill level. Look how quick she is to notice. Was I too obvious with my mistakes? I deliberately played some beats that should have been twisted in regular time. Maybe that was the problem. No matter how I look at it, those are hands that have played piano for a long time. You can tell. Well, my professor did mention seeing it a few times, but how would Yoon Jae-yu, a violinist, know that? Well, maybe I'm mistaken. Anyway, let's try once more. Incorporate what I asked for. That is here, softly. Here, strongly. Here, wait a moment. Here, wait while listening to the sound. Here, with energy. Your instructions are too fast, you brat. How is an ordinary person who can't play piano well supposed to incorporate all those instructions at once? Or has she already realized I'm not an ordinary person and is testing me by listing the corrections even faster than before? If I fix everything, it'll be too obvious just a little. Let's be careful to make it almost imperceptible. A normal person would struggle to make most of the requested adjustments. I should only incorporate the last part about playing with more energy. I'm ready, begin. The introduction begins with my subtle touch. Yoon Jae-yu, who had set down her bow, waits a few beats before drawing it across the strings in one breath. A melancholy yet sensual melody, carrying precarious emotions, resonates throughout the small hall. Indeed, accompaniment might have been my true calling in Italian. An accompanist is called a compagnator. Derived from a verb meaning companion, it signifies not merely a supporting role but an important partner who creates the stage together with the protagonist. In actual collaborative performances, when the harmony between performer and accompanist is good, the sound becomes that much richer and more harmonious. Whether the accompanist completely adapts to the performer or they maintain their individual styles while blending well together. There are various ways to collaborate, but the deeper the trust between performer and accompanist, the more overwhelmingly the quality of the piece improves. With my talent for copying, I could incorporate performers' characteristics into my accompaniment without forming deep relationships with them. Perhaps that's why I could tell performers how their current performance differs from their previous one through accompaniment alone. While the accompaniment always remained consistent with the performer's style, the performance itself changed each time. I couldn't help but notice, even when I didn't want to. Even when performers wavered and staggered in all directions, I, supporting them, remained unaffected and sustained them so they could return whenever they needed. When this fact became known through certain circumstances, people from beyond Hanny University started seeking me out for accompaniment. At the time, I was recovering from a rib injury and frantically trying to catch up with my peers, so I had to refuse them all. If Yoon Jae-yu hadn't taken Ki-won hostage, I would never have chosen this. Now, the climax of the piece begins. The main melody of the rondo and capriccioso that had been repeating continues. But this time, it's the piano, not the violin, that signals the start. That's it, good. Powerful keystrokes. The violin has been playing continuous arpeggios. The sound has softened and the tempo is fast. The bowing must be delicate and challenging, but Yoon Jae-yu executes it all perfectly. After the contrasting piano part ends, the piano and violin blend together with powerful strokes. Then the violin solo again. A performance consisting only of down bows continues, evoking admiration from viewers. Now the climax. The violinist's bow flies across the 4 strings, gripping the audience's hearts tightly so this urgent flow doesn't break. Powerfully, but with just enough intensity not to be overwhelmed by the violin. The ending should be at the same volume. When an intense performance ends, both violinists and pianists tend to fling their bows and hands away from strings and keys as if by agreement. But Yoon Jae-yu calmly set down her bow and stared at me with narrow eyes as I hunched over the keyboard. Why, what did I do something wrong again? A red crystal earring sparkled in the hall's light on her exposed ear as she tilted her head askew. You name. Why do you name? Eek. This crazy woman bringing her face right up to mine. Too close. Even if I lied, she'd find out eventually around school. Since revealing Ki-won's name won't change much anyway, I'll just give her real name. Ki-won, that's me. How old? 19. What? I thought we were the same age. What are you saying, you old hag? There's a 2-year age gap between you and Ki-won. Even by appearance, Ki-won looks much younger, doesn't she? You just cover up with makeup, while Ki-won looks fresh and cute even with light makeup. Anyway, you're younger. Nice to meet you, Ki-won. I'm Jae-yu. Yoon Jae-yu. Behind the smiling Yoon Jae-yu, a gray-skinned witch straight out of fantasy cackles. It's the smile of a witch who's found her prey. No doubt about it. I've been properly caught. I was only planning to attract moderate interest. That strategy seems to have worked perfectly. Even though Yoon Jae Chang seems to talk nonsense, he's surprisingly good at writing scenarios. If he had switched careers to become a writer instead of pursuing classical music, he would have been hugely successful by now. So, do you come here often? No, is it your first time? How did you know about it? Ah, and Appa I know told me. It's a word that's strangely uncomfortable to say, even though I'm half in Kiwon's state. But for revenge, I can endure this much. Now is the time to lay the groundwork. You'll never know that I know Song Seong-hyuk. What? Who is he? He told me not to tell. Come on, don't be like that. I'll keep it a secret between us girls. This woman is truly skilled at manipulating people. If I were actually a naive and fragile girl, I might have fallen for that sugar-coated talk just now. I can't tell you this either. It's like kimchi that needs to ferment until October to taste better. Acting compliant at first, but you're actually quite stubborn. Why, do you like that oppa? No, I don't. Yoon Jae looks at me with suspicious eyes. But since I dislike Song Seong-hyuk, what shows on my face might be fragments of disgust. Suspect all you want. You'll just be wasting your time. Anyway, thanks for helping with practice. How long do you want to play? Long? Then, I'll make sure no one comes in until 3 o'clock. Don't you need to go practice? I'll handle it, so don't worry, Tilda. See you. Yoon Jae leaves with a grin. It sounds like she's going to block the door and turn away everyone who tries to enter, but no way. She'll probably just put a cleaning in progress sign on the door and go about her business, returning 4 hours later. I've been through this before. Well, if she does that, no one will come in, but finally, I'm alone. At last, I have this piano all to myself. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But even with my hands on the keys, enthusiasm doesn't well up. The secondary storm of anger I needed to release has disappeared because of the accompaniment just now. It wasn't easy to pretend to be unskilled in such a clumsy way. No, rather, I had to concentrate on my keystrokes more than usual, which consumed more mental energy. Indeed, my hands are small, though I've been playing piano since childhood and stretching my fingers, so joint movement and spreading them isn't a problem at all. It's only after becoming Kiwon that I realized even Jeong Si-woo's hands, which always made him feel inferior to Song Seong-hyuk, weren't this small. Hands that could reach from middle C to an octave EF. Now they barely reach from middle C to an octave D. Would Maze be too much for these hands? Like Mr. Liszt or Mr. Rachmaninoff. Our piece is full of brilliant octaves and jumps a luxury now. Let's test it. I should check what I'm curious about when I have the chance. When I was 6 years old, I recalled the piece I presented to Professor Baek Jung-eon when I first sat on the piano bench. The title of this piece, which I can now play without sheet music, is La Campanella, the heavenly bell sound that has been ringing in my head since I was a baby. Chapter 25. Are you okay? You must have been quite startled. It's often said in classical music that playing at a fast tempo doesn't qualify as playing well. One reason a certain film that once gained immense popularity through piano battles was criticized by genuine classical fans as a movie that only creates misunderstandings about classical music was precisely because it portrayed fast playing as an important indicator of skill. Of course, while the ability to play quickly isn't the entirety of a pianist's skill, I believe that when a performer who has technically and artistically mastered a piece, that is, someone who has conquered levels 1 and 2 of the domain, attempts fast playing in an extremely difficult piece, it can indeed serve as an indicator of skill and ability. Isn't that obvious? When a piece is difficult to play even at a normal pace, who could question the skill of someone capable of performing it flawlessly at an elevated tempo without a single mistake? Well, That's assuming they maintain all the dynamic markings and technical instructions in the score while only increasing the speed. Thug, then, is playing slower than the prescribed tempo, a sign of insufficient skill. La Campanella's tempo marking is allegretto. While it can't be precisely converted to BPM, assuming it's around 120, that means pressing 4/8 notes per second, 8/16 notes, and in the fastest sections, a whopping 16 30-second notes per key press. Having played this piece since I was 6, I set completing it at 120 BPM as my goal. I barely succeeded just before entering Hanai University, and before graduation, I could even play it slightly faster. My love for La Campanella was special. I would play it to warm up my hands before every lesson. But now, I can't keep up with the speed I once achieved. Can't reach it. Hand size, arm length, wrist flexibility, finger strength. Everything is different now. Not enough strength. The octave trills I once could play using just finger strength with a fixed hand position now require rapid movements with a relaxed wrist. NNGH. Trying to execute the technique of repeated notes with thumb and index finger followed by octaves, I literally had to fly because the keys I needed weren't under my pinky. Simply flying would be fine, but repeating jumps and repeated notes quickly accumulated fatigue in my arms. Forcing myself to complete the piece made my energy distribution uneven, and the entire piece was in danger of falling apart in the latter half. Finally, right before the cadenza, after a fast scale followed by arpeggios, I declared defeat. Ruin woe. I nearly toppled backward off the piano bench, but fortunately, my toes caught under the keyboard. My head barely avoided hitting the floor. Perhaps because Kiwon's body is flexible, I didn't feel any pain despite being bent backward like a bow. This won't work. Indeed, the difference in physical specs can't be ignored. Kiwon and I clearly differ physically. But is Kiwon's body bad for playing piano? Not at all. It just means that each body has its own suitable style, and I need to abandon the style I had clung to as Young Siwoo to achieve a satisfying performance. Still somehow, I feel something welling up hotly inside my chest. It's like returning to childhood, when I had to adjust my playing posture and fingering every few years to match my growing body. Piano really is enjoyable. It always has been, and that hasn't changed even after becoming Kiwon. And if anything, my enthusiasm is much higher now as Kiwon than before I died. Color. The hope that I might find my color is pushing me forward. I had grown accustomed to living in pitch-black darkness where nothing was visible. But now, light is beginning to enter again. It's subtle and small, almost invisible. But it's clearly showing me the path to a door leading to a new world. It really is a flirt. You were indeed my hope. I'm glad my obsession with you wasn't in vain. If I want to reference, I should probably watch Kiwon's past videos again. I need to learn about her piano persona by physically recreating the pieces she plays in the videos and the scores that only remain in memory. I'm sorry for dragging you along so forcefully. But Min Kiwon, you really are amazing. Your claim to dislike classical music was a lie, wasn't it? Despite the precariousness, you didn't make a single mistake until the cadenza. That wasn't something I could force. It was possible because La Campanella was stored in your body's muscle memory. # 1 hour later, in the office of Professor Baek Jung-eon, chair of Hanai University's piano department. Yes, come in. A young woman with short black hair greeted Professor Baek with a prim smile as she entered after knocking. Hello, Professor. Are you busy? From Yoon Jae-yu's perspective, all she could see was the graying hair visible above the monitor. Professor Baek Jung-eon appeared to be busy organizing lesson records for students who had applied for the Mozart Korea competition taking place in early April. You'll have to wait a bit, is that okay? Yes. Then sit there. Would you like something to drink? No, I'm fine. I'll just have some water. While filling a paper cup at the water dispenser, Jae-yu glanced toward Professor Baek beyond the monitor. Tap 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 tap. Professor Beek's hands flew across the keyboard. He seemed to be putting tremendous effort into his document work. But Jae-yu soon noticed something strange. Professor Beek's fingers were repeatedly pressing only specific buttons in a regular rhythm. At first, she thought she was mistaken, but SDL, who in the world writes documents using only these 6 buttons? Feeling mischievous, Jae-yu murmured very quietly, "What's this music? Is it classical?" Professor Beek's rapidly moving hands performed a series of actions like a machine. Left hand, Alt plus tab. Right hand, speaker volume down. Jae-yu could guess what he had been doing. It must be Bienimo, that game that was ported to system last year and is beloved by fans again, often played by students in Hanai's instrumental department. I'm busy, what brings you here? Seeing him playing a game, it seems the lesson record organization was finished long ago. His diligence is unparalleled, after all. I was wondering if this student is a freshman in the piano department. A video recorded in Baek Jung-eon Hall played on Jae-yu's phone. A girl with neat, olive-colored long hair was playing La Campanella as if possessed. A la Campanella slightly slower than usual, but all the more substantial for it. The way she cleanly cleared every note with her small hands, missing nothing, drew admiration from Professor Baek. Wasn't she playing flawlessly a piece where even famous pianists typically make a mistake or two? Though she gave up at the cadenza, perhaps due to lack of stamina, it was quite an interesting performance until then. Among people Professor Baek knew, only 2 could play La Campanella this perfectly. Strange. I don't recall seeing such a student. What about someone who registered but cancelled enrollment? Many talented students switch to SNU, as we have too many geniuses here. Let me check. Professor Baek hurriedly searched through the student records. But no matter how many photos he looked at, the student in the video was nowhere to be found. Her name is Kiwon, they say. Kiwon. Using the search function didn't change anything. There was no student named Kiwon in Professor Baek's memory or in the records. Seeing her play piano, she's probably not from another department. I think so too. But she seems to know someone in the piano department. Really? Yes. She apparently heard about the grand piano here from one of our department students. They didn't give a name though. Jae-yu smiled slyly and tipped off Professor Baek. She said she's 19. Coming here to play suggests she doesn't have a dedicated professor, don't you think? That makes sense. But it's also hard to believe someone who plays this well doesn't have a sponsoring foundation or instructor. Still, we don't know. Professor Baek's expression said it all. In that short time, he had fallen for Kiwon's performance. No matter how renowned a professor at a famous arts university, no matter how extensive his career or how many disciples he had, the desire to nurture new talent never ceased. I should discreetly ask the department students. If you find her, will you let me know? Why would you, Jae-yu? Jae-yu carefully folded her empty paper cup and tossed it into the trash. She seems like the perfect practice partner for me. I try playing through the arrangement of a song called Idol that I need to play this Sunday, recalling the score in my mind. I've barely reached the middle of the piece, but I already want to give it 5 stars. It's not difficult at all. This was essentially a piece Kiwon dedicated to herself, Min Kiwon. It was completely different from playing La Campanella earlier. There wasn't a single uncomfortable or awkward moment throughout. All the instrumental elements of the original are included, yet they're all covered even with Kiwon's small hands. The vocal line is mostly handled by the right hand, but when necessary, it's managed through hand crossing and left hand jumps. Meanwhile, the remaining fingers cover the synthesizer, main theme, and bass. The limited hand size is perfectly compensated for through appropriate cross-editing of left and right hand scores and finger-by-finger dynamic control. There's hardly a resting finger throughout the performance, but it's not crammed with notes like some demonic arrangement either. Including only what's necessary, it achieves about 80% of the original yet sounds complete. This is Kiwon's color truly magical. Is this where the true value of No. 1 through No. 24 is revealed? Because she dissected and experienced each orchestral component, making them her own, and because Kiwon's piano forms the base, the arrangement is perfect. As someone who avoided composition and arrangement due to lack of creativity, I find this simply amazing. Should I play another piece when this one ends? It feels like Kiwon and I are sitting side by side on the piano bench, performing together. Bravo! But at the applause that comes right as the piece ends, I stand up startled from the piano bench and bang my knee under the keyboard. Oh, as I roll on the floor with a painful groan, a familiar face casts a shadow over me. So you're not actually an idol voice actor VTuber? Where the hell did this Yoon Jae-chang guy pop up from? Chapter 26. I'm sorry, so you're not actually an idol voice actor VTuber? Yoon Jae-chang, who had appeared out of nowhere, grinned and extended his hand. I backed away and stood up hesitantly. My knees hurt like hell. You don't have to force yourself to stand up. It's kind of cute that way too. I collapsed right there and retched on the floor. Ugh, whoa, what's wrong? Did you eat something bad? Yoon Jae-chang just called me cute. I almost threw up bile even though I hadn't eaten anything. No, well first, I need to do something about his formal speech. It's making me uncomfortable to the point of death. I'm actually younger than you, so please speak casually to me. But Yoon Jae-chang was unnecessarily polite in front of women. How can I speak casually when we're not even close? You immediately spoke casually to characters you were into. You were even singing AI-chan, Aishitaru to them. Please, could you just do it? Oh, that's the same look I saw yesterday. Just do it. When I switched to casual speech first, Jae-chang finally responded. Oh, you spoke casually first. I guess I have no choice then. At least my knees were in good enough condition to walk now. I slowly got up, preparing to escape. I was starting to get hungry since I hadn't eaten breakfast. I needed to go somewhere to fill my stomach and then come back. Where did you even come from anyway? Me. I was lying under the stage the whole time. The Baek Jung-eon Hall is small, but it has a stage with a grand piano and tiered seating that can accommodate about 40 people. A blind spot not visible from the stage. That's where Yoon Jae-chang had emerged from. Ugh, the smell of alcohol. This bastard drank and slept here. The one who was supposed to accompany, so that's why Yoon Ji-yu was lingering near the piano. The person who was supposed to play got drunk and wouldn't wake up, so she had no choice but to pick me. I slowly got up and headed toward the main entrance of Baek Jung-eon Hall. Wait, where are you going? I'm leaving. I'm hungry. Play just one more song before you go. I have a request. I didn't come here for a free performance. I just came to hang out for a bit. Come on. You played so well. As I struggled to push open the large door, Yoon Jae-chang asked again. By the way, do you know a clerk? The door, Sorry. Fortunately, I was struggling with the heavy door. Otherwise, I would have been caught right away. Even for a lazy good-for-nothing, he has good ears. He recognized a clerk's playing style immediately. Ackle what? A clerk. I frowned and tilted my head. I guess you don't know. I thought your arrangement style was very similar to a clerk's. Here comes the question. What would Yoon Jae-chang's reaction be if I pretended not to know a clerk at all? Option 1. He'd just accept it and move on. Option 2. He'd persistently dig deeper and follow me. The answer is obviously option 2. This guy might look like a thoughtless idiot, but his sister is Yoon Ji-yu. That blood runs in his veins too. The Yoon siblings always have to get what they want. The moment I deny it, it would only look like someone with a connection to a clerk trying to cover it up. In this case, it's better to tell a convincing lie. Do you like a clerk? Huh? Yeah, I really like them. Do you know what song you just played? Sort of. Sort of isn't good enough. It's a masterpiece with over 200 million views. It gave birth to my favorite. Yoon Ji-chang started explaining the work at a terrifying speed. I knew what it was, but I let him ramble on enthusiastically. Phew, I've already listened to it about 20 times. When I heard you playing just now and during that time, I escaped. When he gets immersed in talking, he sometimes closes his eyes, which gave me a chance to slip away. Of course, just because there was an opening didn't mean I could definitely escape. Ji-cheng was as quick to act as his sister. Hey, where are you going? I wasn't finished talking. You didn't answer my question and I said I'm hungry. Then shall we talk over a meal? I'd like that even less. Come on, I won't eat you. Look, don't I seem kind? Where else would you find someone as nice as me? Wow, this jerk isn't even embarrassed. If it were me, I'd have curled up like a roll cake from fingertips to shoulders by now. Anyway, do you know a Clert? Yes. Are you a fan? Yeah. Can I go now? Yoon Ji-cheng smiled triumphantly, as if saying, caught you. But he's the one who's been caught. What a fool. That's strange. If you're just a fan, how did you play that piece just now? If you've been a fan for 3 years, you play like a... Didn't you know? For the first time, his perpetual smile faltered into a look of confusion. Not only did I use the nickname which only true Clert fans know, but I also quoted verbatim a comment that I had left on videos of fans trying to play like them. Still, that arrangement doesn't make sense. It was too identical to A's style. How would you know unless you're a yourself? I know, because I'm a genius. Should I punch him? Just tell me. I'll keep your secret. You're that person, right? A's younger sister? Or A's cousin? A family member? I have to admit his sharp insight is impressive. But he's not the only special one. I could also identify any famous performer if you just gave me the recital recording and asked guess who's playing. What do you want to know for? Well, suddenly, Yoon Ji-chang put on a stern expression. To warn you. I thought he was going to ask for a private fan meeting. This was unexpected. Do you know how scary the world is these days? One post on the internet can get you identified, your contact information leaked, your home address exposed. Think about it. What if someone other than me had heard your performance just now? Not all fans are like this, but, to summarize his long explanation, there are always obsessive fans, and if you get caught by one of those malicious types, you could be followed and a Clert's identity could be exposed. And that would be the best-case scenario. It could escalate to stalking or invasion of privacy. I didn't know how Yoon Ji-chang conducted himself as an Clert fan. Surprisingly, he was quite gentlemanly and sensible. Does he put on manners the moment he recognizes someone as a person rather than a character? And this is the same guy who writes shocking, unspeakable posts in online communities. So from now on, don't play in A's style in open places like this. Play classical music instead. I don't have anywhere to play until the week after next. Then for today, use this. Yoon Ji-chang handed me a card. It was his student ID. This guy treats school rules like dirt. Does he not know that lending student ID is prohibited? With that, you can enter any empty practice room. Play in a soundproof room. How about it? Sounds good? Ah, yes, after you're done playing, throw it under the leftmost seat in the front row of Baek Jung-eon Hall. I'll pick it up. But I had no reason to refuse his offer. Even if I got caught, you'd be the only one in trouble anyway. Since I kind of figured it out, let me ask you this. That piece from earlier, was it right? What do you mean? The sheet music for the video that I arranged to be uploaded next week. Huh? So is finally covering an idol song. With an ecstatic expression, Yoon Ji-chang clasped his hands together, closed his eyes, and muttered as if in prayer. The anime was such a hit that covers are pouring out, but no one recreates the original as richly as it does. And then you come along and play in A's style, which completely woke me up. Phew! Exclaiming in admiration, he now clenched both fists. By the way, what's your actual relationship with A? Maybe family. Why are you asking me? I'm the one who asked the question. Seemingly tired of my brazen attitude, Yoon Jicheng sighed and said, "It's all going to come out when the video is uploaded to YouTube anyway. Why not just tell me now? What do you mean by come out? Wait a minute. Could I add my own color to Ki-won's performance? No, I couldn't. Then, the performance Yoon Jicheng just heard and the video that will be uploaded they would be the same, right? You know there's a big difference between hearing something on YouTube and hearing it live, right? I know that. But I'm saying this even taking that into account. It was still identical." Yoon Jicheng's ability to discern music was truly remarkable. Even the professor said this guy was better at listening and analyzing than playing. Since Yoon Jicheng has been following the clerk longer than I have, he could easily recognize the style, even accounting for differences between live and recorded performances. What the hell? I've already been exposed. I thought I was well hidden with my head buried in the sand. What's with that expression? It's like you're thinking I've been caught. Ha ha. And that laugh. Why is it so resigned? The corners of Yoon Jicheng's mouth, which had been giggling, gradually turned downward. We stood there for a while, looking at each other in silence. "It's not true, right?" Yoon Jicheng asked first. I answered weakly. "I think it is." Shake, shake, shake. Shaking his head, Yoon Jicheng asked again. "No, it's really not true, right?" Shake, shake, shake. I shook my head along with him and delivered the final blow. "It is." Yoon Jicheng put his hand on his chin with a serious expression. Then he let out a long groan. Ooh, after doing that for a while, he began to slowly back away. "I'll go wash up." "What?" Yoon Jicheng suddenly started reciting apologies while repeatedly bowing his head. "How dare I attend a fan meeting without washing up? I've been rude. I'm sorry, Anim. I'm sorry for being dirty. I'm sorry for smelling. I'm sorry for smelling like alcohol." He turned 180 degrees like a soldier and started running toward the campus gate. No, wait. Wait a minute. Chapter 27. What? This villainess. I told you it was fine not to do it. But this bastard just had to go home and get all dolled up before coming out. How did he finish showering in like 2 minutes? Even in the military, I couldn't do it that fast. I don't smell anymore, right? Your cologne is way too strong. Just a moment. Yoon Jicheng pulls out wet wipes from who knows where and wipes off the excessive cologne from behind his ears and wrists. Now my nose can finally breathe easy. Once again, I'd like to sincerely apologize for my unseemly behavior in front of a just speak casually like before. How could I? You're the joy, light, and star of my new tube life. AKA, a clerk. He's being ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. No meal if you don't drop the formalities. Hey. His quick change of attitude caught me off guard for a moment. I'm sorry. Hey was too far. All right. What should I call you? I can't call you a clerk or a out in public, can I? I told you my name before, right? Min Ki-won. Such a noble name. I put my hand on my forehead and let out a long sigh. I really didn't want to see my friend acting like this. Give me a moment, I need to practice. Ki-won. Ki-won, it's Appa. Ugh, gross. What's wrong? Are you feeling sick? No, I'm really going to throw up at this rate. I need to get something in my stomach quickly. Sigh. I have a high tolerance for Nunas, but almost none for younger sisters. Though that Nuna is more like a chimera than a human. So when are you going to drop the formal speech? Now. What do you want for lunch? This is the perfect timing for a bowl of soup to soothe my empty stomach. Sunday gukbap. Sunday gukbap. Sounds good. Wait. Sunday gukbap. What? You look like someone who'd just nibble on the end of a baguette. That's surprising. I glared at him for a while in disbelief, but it seemed to have no effect as Yoon Jae-chang started chattering again. I'm still in shock. I was half asleep when I heard A's Oasis-like playing, thinking it was a dream. I never imagined the real A would be right in front of me. And to think A knows my friend. Keep it a secret from Young Si-woo. Secret. Got it. I'm good at keeping secrets anyway. I nodded silently. I know better than anyone how tight-lipped this guy can be. You said you might not upload for about a month. Did you move to Korea for good? Yeah. Why? Austria is nice. Vienna, the city of music. There's no place more musically inspiring. Did you fail to get into music school? Music school? Why would you ask that? Just wondering. So why did you come? I already know why Ki-won came all the way to Korea from what Kang Hwi told me. It was to inspect the arts complex being built by the Kang Hwi Cultural Foundation near my house. I had a reason to come. Ah, because of Si-woo? I glared at him with raised eyebrows, and Yoon Jae-chang held up his palms to calm me down. Whoa. Don't get mad. I was just asking. Don't try to dig into personal matters unnecessarily. I'm not going to tell you anyway. Hey, even if I found out, I wouldn't tell anyone. He rubbed his hands together with an excited expression and licked his lips. Honestly, just talking directly with a like this feels like I've used up all my luck for a lifetime. Good for you. It is. Finding out that the always sweet from the video comments can also make cold expressions and glare intimidatingly makes this even more exciting. Stop saying that name. Oh, even someone with a strong mentality like Yoon Jae-yu, who normally doesn't react to most things, is completely flustered meeting a clerk in person. Well, I was pretty excited too when I first found out Ki-won was a. Anyway, I'm the first fan to get treated to a meal by Ki-won. I dropped a fact to wipe that smug smile off Yoon Jae-chang's face. Unfortunately, Young Si-woo was the first. Though he doesn't know it. Seemingly upset by this, Yoon Jae-chang clutched his forehead and sighed. Tusk. I've been a fan much longer. How dare that guy who's only known about the channel for less than a month. He just got lucky, that's all. Wait. Hold on. Yoon Jae-chang's expression turned serious. Soon, I realized I had made a slip. I thought you met by chance at the supermarket. I tried to avoid his gaze, but it was too late. It was nice knowing you, eh? I'm quitting being a fan starting today. Hey. Wait, I see. So you two are dating. And here I am, being insensitive. No, that's not it. I barely managed to keep Yoon Jae-chang at the table as he was about to dash out of the restaurant. We just met after a long time, and he looked terrible, so I bought him a meal. And when he said he needed to buy something, I just followed him to the supermarket since I wanted to stop by the cafe. I couldn't tell you then because I was afraid you'd misunderstand. Well, there is a big cafe on the second floor of that supermarket. Please don't misunderstand unnecessarily. We're nothing to each other. I hurt myself with my own words. This is the ultimate form of self-inflicted comfort. Anyway, being the second fan to get treated by Ki-won isn't bad either. The world only recognizes first place, but I'm not living to be first. Yeah, he looked somewhat depressed, but I didn't feel the need to comfort him. I slumped my shoulders and asked him, so, can I use this? I told you. You sit and put it back where you found it. I may not take school seriously, but I still need to check in for lessons. Yoon Jae-chang curved his hand next to his mouth as if telling a secret. His voice remained unchanged, so there was no sense of tension at all. Otherwise my dad will kill me. Please. His message was clear and convincing. Maybe it's because I've seen him wandering around campus with bloodshot eyes, rubbing eggs on himself. I nodded in understanding. But when do you even have lessons? That's a good point. Yoon Jae-chang casually held out his phone. What, is he asking for my contact? My professor is a busy person, so lesson times are pretty random. I'll have to contact you directly to let you know. Even Young Si-woo doesn't have Min Ki-won's phone number yet. And Yoon Jae-chang would get it first. It's already frustrating enough being behind Song Seong-hyuk, but that's not happening. Never mind. I won't use it then. Where were you planning to play? I can wait 2 weeks, so I'll just wait. My nonchalant response seemed to bother Yoon Jae-chang, who grinned and asked, "Can you really wait? Your body's itching, isn't it?" With his chin resting on his hand, he started predicting my psychological state like some kind of sage. So it wasn't a dream after all. I heard La Campanella out of nowhere and thought France Liszt had appeared in my dream. You must have heard wrong. No, you played it. It had a subtle vibe to it. How could you tell? Is this guy really good at listening evaluations? How could he mistake my playing for key ones? You've never even heard me play classical pieces before, so stop pretending you know. Unable to deny it, Yoon Jae-chang scratched his cheek and backed down. After cooling his burning throat with cold water, he asked again, "Speaking of which, have you thought about uploading classical performances on your channel?" A guy who dislikes classical music asking for classical uploads. Now that's fresh and shocking. Not at the moment. Why? I'm already busy arranging scheduled songs, preparing cosplays, and filming videos. That's not really the case, but it's better to reject such unnecessary requests. While I know about Ki Won's performances as a flirt, I don't know much about her classical playing. The only one I can recall is Beethoven's Symphony No. 9, and even that was arranged for solo piano. If I play for him, he might get suspicious. Though my classical playing isn't exactly the same as Jung Si-woo's, my current style definitely carries some of Jung Si-woo's characteristics. While the Si-woo from 3 years later plays somewhat differently from the current Si-woo, someone like Yoon Jae-chang would definitely notice the similarities. Well, I may be your fan, but I can't tell you what to do. I understand. Thanks. Just then, the restaurant owner came out from the kitchen with steaming hot stone bowls. One bowl in front of me, one in front of Yoon Jae-chang. After carefully setting them down, she said to me, "Are you sure you don't want the innards removed? All the girls who come here usually have them taken out." I nodded that it was fine, and to show my sincerity, I added a spoonful of seasoning paste, perilla seeds, and chives all at once. Oh, and a bit of salted shrimp too. Then stir it all together. And there you have it, a perfectly spicy Sunday gukbap. Let's eat. Not only does Ki-won enjoy Korean food, but she's also incredibly good with spicy dishes. They say when she lived in Austria, she would go out of her way to find hard-to-get Chunjang peppers and eat them constantly. If it weren't for Ki-won, I wouldn't have known that our country pays royalties to a German pharmaceutical company for Chunjang pepper seeds. Apparently they were sold off cheaply during the IMF crisis, which didn't even exist in my time. As I was eating the soup while lost in various thoughts, Yoon Jae-chang's phone next to him spoke in Japanese. That voice. Is that the heroine who supposedly gave everyone PTSD in episode 1 of I Gave Birth to My Favorite Tug? I'm trying to eat here. Looks like it's a Kakao Talk message from Yoon Jae-yu. If it were in front of Young Si-woo, he'd probably say that girl should at least change her notification sound, damn it. What video is this now? Yoon Jae-chang puts down his spoon and plays the video he received. Hearing the melody, I dropped my spoon. The fallen spoon hits the table, making a clear sound. Yoon Jae-chang glared at me with eyes full of betrayal. What? So that wasn't a dream? You lied again. A short video Yoon Jae-yu sent to Yoon Jae-chang. It was undoubtedly La Campanella that I had played at the Baek Jung-eon Hall. Haha, I laughed outwardly, but inside I was cursing. I didn't need to ask who recorded the video, I already had a pretty good idea. Yoon Jae-yu, that damn girl. Chapter 28. In the Baek Jung-eon Hall where the grand piano is located, surveillance cameras are installed to prevent theft and unexplained damage, but they are strictly managed so that they cannot be accessed without police permission unless a theft has occurred. That's why what was recorded wasn't from the surveillance cameras. The filming location wasn't from the ceiling but from ground level, at the main entrance of the hall. I thought she would go about her business, but for some reason, it was Yoon Jae-yu secretly watching from outside the main entrance. Why on earth? I really don't understand the reason. Was she planning to record me doing something strange and use it for blackmail later? Could all those girls who have been victimized by Yoon Jae-yu also all that continued oppression and persecution? It was all for this stroke of luck. What are you talking about? Anyway, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I could tell just from the video. Min Ki-won is a classical music master. No doubt about it. Sigh. I don't mind being caught playing La Campanella. The problem is that it had to be Yoon Jae-yu, and worse, she's been asking around campus about my identity. Do you know this person? Which video? If you know, please tell me she's a villain by my standards. Yoon Jae-yu is more famous than the student council president in the violin department. She probably won't cause trouble by spreading the video on sites like Ida. But if she's started going around with the video asking students about my identity, it's only a matter of time before it reaches Young Si-woo's ears. Don't worry though. I don't think she found out about Acklert. How do you know? I could see the main entrance from where I was lying down. I was just listening to the music while looking at the entrance. Our house gorilla wasn't there then. That's a relief. If that had been recorded, it would probably be an even bigger mess than it is now. Not just Yoon Jae-chang, but many others might have recognized me. Anyway, shall we begin? Ugh. Don't expect me to play perfectly. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. The reason we suddenly came to the piano department's practice room was to handle this situation. The advice from Yoon Jae-chang, who might become a famous screenwriter, was quite appealing. The plan is to take the initiative before Yoon Jae-yu goes around asking questions. Remember how I said I heard it from an oppa I know? Well, that oppa wasn't just one person, but several. I heard it from Song Seong-hyuk, but also from Yoon Jae-chang. If we pretend that my acquaintance Yoon Jae-chang lent me the practice room, and send Yoon Jae-yu a short 5-second video of me playing, I don't know why she's asking about my identity, but Yoon Jae-yu, who needs me, will cling to Yoon Jae-chang. It's like a hellish game of tag starting within the vast Hanai University campus. I don't plan to visit this place often anyway, so for a while, Yoon Jae-yu will waste a lot of energy looking for a Min Ki-won who doesn't even exist. Let's see her come to me and beg pathetically. I feel bad about dumping this on Yoon Jae-chang, but he says there's no one more suitable for tanking than himself. Above all, he volunteered out of fan enthusiasm, so he even asked for praise. I can't quite bring myself to praise him. Let me just play for him. The La Campanella he so desperately wants to hear. I carefully placed my hands on the keys and briefly deliberated in my mind about how to play. Self-1 says, since connecting with Young Si-woo is destiny anyway, wouldn't it be fine to just play like Si-woo? Yoon Jae-chang, who will properly hear it, will surely encourage and support Young Si-woo. This is the opportunity. Self-992 jumps in with an objection. Somehow this one is also holding a panel with Song Seong-hyuk's face printed on it. What's this? I never gave permission for such things. But since we don't know who Ki-won will end up with, it's not right to favor only Si-woo. Self-992 argued quite an objective opinion. Though I dislike Song Seong-hyuk, I was completely convinced just now. But can I play in Ki-won's style? My La Campanella is based on the performance taught by my advisor, Professor Baek Jung-eon. From when I was 6 years old, desperately pressing keys with my short fingers trying to imitate him, until a few years ago when I was fully grown. Countless changes in fingering, rearranging phrasing, and relying on brief self-reflection sessions after playing to make it as comfortable and perfect as possible for me. Add to that listening to performances by all sorts of musical masters, and it's a rendition I've perfected over 15 years. Naturally, changing to Key One's style overnight is nearly impossible. I don't like Yoon Jae-chang making a fuss either. This guy will surely question the relationship between me and Young Si-woo after hearing it. Did they learn from the same professor? Did Young Si-woo teach me? The possibilities for suspicion are endless. I think there might be a way I mentioned before that my self-awareness shifts depending on whether I identify as Young Si-woo or Min Ki-won. What if I identify as Ki-won and play in that state? Could I forcibly recall any memories Min Ki-won might have of La Campanella? Since the two chromosomes are separated in subtle layers, I could break down that boundary and temporarily empower the Min Ki-won side of my consciousness. The reason I'm suddenly talking about this is because I had a peculiar experience earlier in Baek Hall. I gave birth to my bias opening, Min Ki-won's arrangement version. With Yoon Jae-chang suddenly appearing, I didn't have time for self-reflection, but I definitely felt it right after playing. I was with Ki-won then. Just as Min Ki-won-0 met another Min Ki-won while making music, I too felt her presence. So I believe she will surely appear this time as well. And if there's a chance to ask who she likes, that would be even better. I am Min Ki-won. After repeating this in my mind about 10 times, I made one request to Yoon Jae-chang to check if I was properly blended. Could you massage my shoulders a little? Your shoulders? Yes. Well, it's not difficult, but why are you suddenly using formal speech again? I was surprised to find myself unconsciously using formal speech, just like Ki-won. Eek! I was startled because Yoon Jae-chang's thoughtless massaging felt strangely uncomfortable. I quickly swatted his hand away with a sharp snap. That hand slapping was totally like Min Ki-won. Wow, this feels weird. So this is what happens when Ki-won gets mixed in a lot. I was curious but also anxious about what would happen if I mixed even more. Phew. I'll play now. A long deep breath. I turn on the metronome in my head. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The 6/8 rhythm flows at the same 120 BPM as before. A small bell rings, ding, 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 gradually becoming softer and swinging slowly to signal the beginning. After a few measures, my right hand begins its possessed jumping between octaves in earnest, starting with the thumb and pinky on an octave eighth, then expanding to 10th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 16th, reaching a 17th interval before returning, and then repeating the same pattern an octave lower. Next is adding the index finger to this jumping. With my hand already stretched to its limit, my index finger needs to press keys close to my thumb, so the jumps must be more powerful and precise. The volume of the notes played with my pinky was inconsistent and uneven. If it were within a span where I could reach both end notes with my hand spread out, I could maintain a consistent volume with elastic snapping flicking the wrist. But once the jumps started, the intensity varied wildly. Someone with less sensitive ears might think that's fine and move on, but I Ki-won am not like that. I could pour all my resources into perfect technique like before, but then I know Ki-won's body would force the performance to stop before reaching the cadenza, the climax and flower of the piece. Self-111 of Young Si-woo shouts, making mistakes in the technique of a piece practiced for 15 years is shameful. A piece that isn't perfect isn't worth playing. Either play it properly or quit. Self-999, who was listening, counters. Stopping mid-performance is more serious than hitting wrong notes or ignoring the score's instructions. It's like giving up my right to be evaluated. Self-111 counterattacks, asking what reason Ki-won has to enter competitions. Self 999 loudly scolds back, saying how dare one discuss technique when they can't even complete a performance. Other selves take sides with either 111 or 999. This is right, that is right. They prepare for an all-out war, splitting the newly rebuilt Colosseum in half. The strings of the grand piano before me, the selves standing on them look at me and ask, "What will you do? Choose. Whose side are you on? Why do we have to fight?" A new argument captivates me with its beautiful voice. That's right. That's what I wanted to say. Everyone. The voice comes again. It was unfamiliar, and I wondered who it could be. It was none other than myself. More precisely, Self 0 had appeared. Let's not fight. If we all work together, we can create a more perfect harmony. Unlike Selves 1 through 999, this one had Key 1's appearance. Surprisingly, all the selves turned their heads at that voice. I was only 26 people, but you are nearly 1,000. It might be chaos if everyone speaks individually, but if we all start speaking with one voice, Min Key 1, who had played all the instruments that make up an orchestra, gathered Min Key 1 models 1 through 25 within me and came to a simple conclusion. Together, we can perfectly reconstruct it. It just takes a little compromise and consideration from each of us. That would be the most beautiful harmony in the world. That's what I think. But perhaps because it was a lonely voice without support. Even after hearing that cry, the selves were drawn back into the fight between 111 and 999. These damn fools, how can they behave so shamefully when our future madam has arrived? Finally, unable to hold back, 1 raises his voice. Everyone, it was the loudest voice of all the inner voices so far. Attention, the vicious Key 1 fan club had evolved into becoming Key 1 herself. The Min Key 1 portion of my consciousness had doubled. Chapter 29, the black musician numbers 0 and 1 boldly led the Key 1 fan club. But the three factions never became one. I thought it would be impossible to embrace everyone. Yet number 0 faction is so small. They couldn't even gather 5 selves. That's only natural. Number 0 self-reassures me, saying it's fine. That's right. This is to be expected. This was the extent of Key 1's share in my heart just before dying. I remembered her but pushed her to a corner of my mind, knowing we could never meet again. It's already remarkable that number 1 is vocally supporting number 0 like earlier. Besides, I'm now playing a difficult piece with an unfamiliar body. To focus on the music, everyone is in a state where nothing enters their mind except La Campanella. Despite fighting among themselves, they maintain a professional mindset. If I could have been like Song Seong-hyuk, wouldn't I have made a name for myself as a perfect pianist? These fragmented selves are essentially flowers I never got to bloom. So, I'm left with nothing but regret. Drip. A few drops of sweat roll down my temple along my jawline. Small droplets gather to form larger ones, falling onto my knit top and skirt, leaving marks. It's hard. So hard. The energy I poured into both arms is starting to come back as aftershocks. I can feel my muscles gradually stiffening. After this scale, it's octaves. The piece reaches its climax. After the brief ascending and descending passages, now comes the section where I ring bells with 4 fingers simultaneously. An extreme in-place jumping of both hands at up to 8 times per second. If I try to power through it like before, I'll definitely collapse. Even when I was Jeong Siwoo, I didn't rely solely on muscle power. I need to consider the different joint lengths and flexibility now. Less force than before, but stronger rebound. Relax the wrist, increase the rotation angle. Let go of the desire to land each note perfectly. If it seems like I'll make a mistake, it's okay to blur it slightly, jump with elasticity for continuous leaps. Continuity is important. Do your best to maintain individual perfection, but pursue overall completion. Are you ready? Number 0 self asks. I hear her warm inner thoughts saying it's okay to stop if I can't hold on. I'm not stopping. If I had any intention of quitting, I would have given up piano when I was younger. I soar higher to the edge of the sky until I touch the sun. The final theme melody, the echo of bell sounds more intense than before, resonates. I could feel my fingers slipping slightly on the keys, wet with sweat. I struggle desperately to prevent them from sliding. It's almost over. The final movement, the cadenza, emotions that reach their peak and gradually subside. And the finale. Clap, 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 clap. Wow. Though buried under Yoon Ji-chang's exclamation, the small applause from myself gradually began to increase. Still small in scale, but the number of Kiwon fan club members had grown considerably. What? You play well. Seems like you've practiced a lot. Perhaps due to heightened emotions, Kiwon felt particularly prominent. No, we were sitting in the same place. The sweat drenching our body was shed by both her and me. It's not easy, no, you played well enough. Much better than Jiang Siwoo, who thinks he's a perfect performer. I was in a happy, almost intoxicated state. But Yoon Ji-chang's sudden remark soured my mood. What? I frowned and glared at Yoon Ji-chang. This is a secret from that bastard. I'll keep your alert identity secret too. Just know this isn't gossip. How is this not gossip? It's not. Yoon Ji-chang asked me to watch and sat on the piano bench in my place. He wiped the piano with a handkerchief from his pocket, then began playing the cadence of La Campanella. Look, you played like this earlier. Our performance recreated by someone else was Daradaradaradan. Wait, just a moment, terrible. What kind of performance is this? Did I really play like that? Yeah. Should I have recorded and played it back to you? No, that's fine. Anyway, it felt like this. Something very desperate. You get it, right? Why do I sound like a traveler facing death against a powerful enemy, desperately struggling to survive? Jiang Siwoo's style is like this. This time it was a copy of my original La Campanella performance. Certainly, Yoon Ji-chang's talent is remarkable. It wasn't perfect, but my feeling was definitely there. I was amazed how someone who doesn't practice could do that. See the difference? Siwoo's version seems much better. I never imagined an alert would give such an answer. What? Geez. The Jiang Siwoo style performance played again. Then, Yoon Ji-chang replayed the joint performance of Kiwon and me. Placed side by side, the difference was obvious. Just by embracing Kiwon a little more, the performance became completely different. You understand what I'm trying to say? Yoon Ji-chang rose from the bench and leaned against the grand piano, stroking his chin. There's something Professor always tells Jiang Siwoo. That he lacks color. What? How does I know that? We're friends. Of course I know. He looks at me with suspicious eyes, as if I had told a lie. You were deeper friends than I thought. Deep, what do you mean? Never mind. Anyway, he was self-aware that he was like a copycat, unable to create his own color, merely reproducing others. But he couldn't overcome it. Was it wrong to try to learn from others? Or was I just naturally distant from autonomy? The more experiences I had, the more I was swayed by others without finding myself. That was clearly reflected in my performances. Your technique and skill are perfect. It's only been a month, but from what I've heard, that's undeniable. No matter what piece you're assigned, you master it in a short time and surprise your peers with the textbook performance. I agree, but Jiang Siwoo's performances lack conviction. I agree. Honestly, I think Professor Baek Jung-eon is a bit harsh. He could explain more clearly, but he just says you lack color. This is a secret from Siwoo. How do you know that? Yoon Ji-chang rolled his eyes and groaned. It's just my guess and intuition. That guy doesn't lack color, he has too many colors. Too many colors? See? He opened a drawing app on his phone and laid out 3 colors on a white background: red, yellow, and green. What happens when you mix these colors? It becomes black. That's it. Not white, but black. Blacky became dark because he embraced too many colors. Thus, similar to white, it creates the illusion of having no color at all. I've told Jiang Siwoo this several times. But that bastard only listens to the professor, so perfect timing. When I first enrolled, I was so tired of Yoon Jicheng's carefree attitude that I didn't even listen to his advice. After spending 2.5 months recovering from broken ribs and then wasting 3 months helping Yoon Ji-yu, he tried to tell me again, but the timing was terrible. How could I hear anything when my ears were blocked with the rubber of despair? Anyway, when you cram too many people's styles into one piece, the theme you want to convey doesn't come across well. How can there be consistency when everyone has different ideas? Pop. Yoon Jicheng's fingertip points at me. But R.A. Achlert was different. In that performance just now, that desperate, precarious feeling came through clearly. I almost died from the intensity. If my technique has changed, it's purely due to Kiwon's influence. It was a performance made possible by number 0 self and Kiwon's body. I didn't contribute anything, even if I deeply inscribe this eye-opening advice in my heart. Can a person change so easily? With Kiwon's help, I created classical music full of her color. But what about Jiang Siwoo? Even if I advise him, it's uncertain whether I can have a significant impact. Unless he unites his selves, these crazy ones I copied who are constantly building colosseums into one. There will be no change. He'll remain a performer of black. Still, you never know. At least try, and regret saying this wasn't it later. Not trying at all wouldn't be like Jiang Siwoo. Because I've gained an additional 3 years of life that others don't have. I am Jiang Siwoo. So I intend to take action. Breaking away from my stubborn, imitative musical style. Instead of constantly absorbing, now creating something new. Anyway, will you upload classical music to your channel too? Looking at the grinning Yoon Jicheng, I lightly wiped away my sweat. When I run out of Achlert repertoire, and if I still can't arrange music myself, I might casually pull it out as an emergency option. Well, maybe in about 2 years. I'll think about it. 2 years is too far away. Be grateful. Chapter 30. Alpha male. Despite all the ups and downs, at least I got to play the piano to my heart's content. I was so anxious on my way back, worried I might run into Yoon Ji-yu. Min Ki-won. But the person who stopped me as I headed toward the main gate to catch a taxi was someone completely different. I frowned as soon as I recognized the man who appeared. It was Song Seong-hyuk. Is it right after the professor's lesson at 5 p.m.? I have something urgent to do, so I need to go quickly. Stop right there. I have something to talk to you about. I tried to escape, but maybe because his legs were so long, he bounded over like some grasshopper, leaping across the space. In an instant, my path was blocked. Wasn't it similar when I was with Yoon Ji-yu earlier? Ki-won isn't that short, so why does she seem so slow? Let me know when you're coming to school. Well, I just came because I was curious. Conversations with him are painfully awkward, as always. We've been in the same department for over 3 years, but we never ran into each other except during lectures or lessons. I came to play the piano. Huh? No. Just Song Seong-hyuk held out his phone. On the screen, I was playing La Campanella. Yoon Ji-yu. Busted. If you'd told me, I could have booked a practice room for you. I just wanted to come by for fun. The intense gaze of Song Seong-hyuk visible through the gaps in his shaggy hair is uncomfortable. He's like this even with his eyes mostly covered by his hair. I must have developed an alpha male phobia. The strange silence between us continued. Somehow, it felt like Song Seong-hyuk was holding back something he wanted to say. You're going home, right? Yes. When are you going to reply to my message? Ah. So, what did he ask me? I completely erased the memory of seeing his message, so I can't recall. What did you say again? Cosplay. Costume. New release. Need to try it on. As if phrasing a musical piece, Song Seon-hyuk jabbed each important point back into my head. Ah. Right, that's right. I sent you the schedule, so pick a date that works for you. Okay. And what about the song? What are you going to do? Ah. Let me think. What was the song after Idol in the opening of I Gave Birth to My Favorite? The next song wasn't an animation theme song either. Did he anticipate that the upcoming video would cause a huge sensation? Instead of choosing another animation, Ki-won selected one of the songs by Bamily, a couple singer-songwriter duo who boosted an animation's popularity with their magnificent song. This one. I searched for the video on YouTube and showed it to Song Seong-hyuk. It's Bamily's third song. Song Seong-hyuk immediately played the original song on his AirPods. After listening for about 30 seconds, he nodded and said, "The song is good. But why choose a song that's 2 years old now?" Ki-won didn't start piano arrangements just for fame. Perhaps she wanted to master more diverse and numerous songs. Regardless of views or recognition, she would choose any song that allowed her to try something she hadn't done before and start arranging it. Well, it could also be that she hadn't known about it at first, then later fell in love with the song Idol through the animation and ended up listening to all the artist's songs. Most would agree that YouTube's algorithm doesn't always target one's preferences. Anyway, judging by the Bamily dominance period that started this week, it's practically a given that Ki-won really liked this singer-songwriter duo. Whether it was due to the sudden pattern change or not, fans also fell into various concerns during this dominance period. Thanks to Yoon Jae-chang, who claimed to be a true fan and unnecessarily shared information, even I, who only liked the performances, picked up quite a bit. I'm worried about depression. Depression? The singer-songwriter duo Bamily showed exceptional talent in creating songs based on creative works, especially novels or poems. That's why their lyrics often carried profound or serious meanings. Yoon Jae-chang was particularly anxious about not understanding why she chose Walking in the Night. The lyrics placed over the charming, exciting melody and lively beat were uniquely shocking and gloomy. A lover who always wants to die and the narrator who wants to save her. The two clash until finally the narrator understands the lover's thoughts and succumbs to death's temptation, implying they jump together. This was conveyed throughout the song Walking in the Night. No way, AE isn't preparing for death or anything, right? Since I wasn't E's fan at the time, I didn't pay much attention. But even now, I think his worry was unfounded. It's true that Ki-won chose Walking in the Night to end the Bamily dominance period. But not all the songs Ki-won selected during that period were as depressing as Walking in the Night. Navy, which sang about wandering youth moving forward. Love Letter, which captured the pure excitement conveyed by a fan. Spring Forget Me Not, about breakups, memories, and lingering attachments to past days. Monster, depicting the contradiction of growing for love and breaking one's beliefs in the process, and so on. No matter how you look at it, it was just a few months of Bamily fandom. Creators have their preferences too, and they spend their leisure time being fans or getting ideas. In fact, the song uploaded 2 weeks later was, as usual, a cheerful and energetic animation song. Until she ended her activities the following year, Klurt continued her video activities by covering the animation songs of that quarter. I just liked the song. As if he had expected that answer, Song Seong-hyuk snorted briefly and gazed at my face intently. You'd look cute in a wolf or rabbit cosplay. Ah, right. The song Monster is set in a world of bipedal animals, where the protagonist is a wolf who walks on 2 legs and the heroine is a rabbit. I'm not planning to stop at just ears. Ki-won put a lot of effort into recreating the original. And that wasn't limited to just the song Tell Them I Want Perfect Doll masks made. Wolf. Or rabbit. Both. The same applied to cosplay. She could have gone with just a cute look. But just as I hate making mistakes in technique and skill, she seemed to extremely despise ambiguous cosplay. It's probably due to the influence of No. 25, which accounts for most of Ki-won's dark history. Lady Eclert's has continued even now, 3 years later. Anyway, thanks to this, the cover video of Monster featured Ki-won's full body for the first and last time. Although she was wearing wolf and rabbit masks. Let's go. Song Seong-hyuk, who had finished typing notes on his phone with one hand, handed my phone back to me. Where to? Aren't you going to Hella Hotel? Ah, right. I should go. Or the pet hotel. Song Seong-hyuk was chattering as if he knew my schedule well. Nothing he said was wrong, but listening to him made me feel rebellious. He must have driven here. That white convertible of his. He seems to want to give me a ride, but unfortunately, I'm planning to take a taxi. I'll go alone. Don't worry about it and go ahead. Surprisingly, Song Seong-hyuk backed off easily without even pretending to be disappointed. Is this the composure of an alpha male? Is it a silent implication that he doesn't need to cling or beg because I'll eventually come to him anyway? It's infuriating. I really don't like that composure. I want to trip him and make him fall. How ugly of me. No matter how anxious I get, the person Ki-won likes is already determined. There's a possibility it could be me, but it's more likely to be Song Seong-hyuk. Besides, it's a given that Ki-won spent more time with Song Seong-hyuk than with me during this period. I need to maintain my belief that I shouldn't influence either Song Seong-hyuk or Jeong Si-woo. Being biased is something only a lowly man would do. Have we been meeting often lately? I asked Song Seong-hyuk straightforwardly. Not often. About once every 3 days since we were young. I took a direct hit from a torpedo with maximized explosive power, breaking my keel. No. 992 is standing on the bow of the sinking ship, laughing. I see even most couples only meet once a week. Once every 3 days. That's not just frequent, it's extremely frequent. They must be family. 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 Song Seong-hyuk is family. So there are no romantic feelings. It's just regular meetings purely for YouTube business. But my assertion echoes emptily. The voice of No. 992 chanting Song Seong-hyuk's name is particularly loud today. Judging by your expression, it seems you don't plan to go straight home. Perhaps he misunderstood that I was thinking of something else as I bit my lip in contemplation. Song Seong-hyuk showed unnecessary consideration, making me feel even more ugly. I found a place that makes delicious crab stew. I looked it up and made a reservation. The professor told me about it. He said it's the perfect season for female crabs now. I can go alone, but join me if you want. I've heard about this. If you want to seduce a woman, you shouldn't show impatience. Consideration that naturally emanates from one's being, appearing nonchalant. A suggestion thrown casually, like a gentle probe, without any force. Relationship experts say these little things are key to moving a woman's heart. It could simply be that he wanted to experience Korean food culture like a tourist since he had lived in Austria all his life. But the same applies to Ki-won. Song Seong-hyuk was appropriately touching on common ground with Ki-won and very carefully asking for her opinion. As a rival, I really dislike him. But as a man-to-man, there's a lot to learn from this guy. Right, rather than blindly resisting, I need to make what's useful mine. Even Jeong Si-woo, who knows nothing about dating, is good at copying. If I learn well, I can use it when I return to my own body. I'll suck him dry to the bone. I'll go, but you have to walk Rika. Deal. With labor as a bonus. Chapter 31. Want to stay over? Delicious, it's good. Young Si-woo's life was as black as his playing. So this is how delicious blue crab can be. It's the stew that's delicious. You've eaten crab dishes in Austria too, remember? Have I? Anyway, there are many kinds of happiness people can experience in life. Among them, food. Chinese letter, which forms the foundation of human life, plays a significant role in happiness. Gourmets often describe the ecstasy of tasting an exquisite delicacy for the first time as like visiting heaven. Those who prefer intense expressions might say it's better than lust and pleasure, and they might be right. Have I really been missing out on something this delicious all this time? Looking back, I probably have memories of eating various foods at the professor's house with Baek Chunga. There might have been blue crab stew among them. The reason I don't remember is because of the negative factor called Baek Chunga. When people have happier memories, they tend to easily forget the less happy ones. In my case, it was music. Especially the happiness I felt when completing a piano piece was beyond imagination. I often forgot to eat while immersed in playing, with over 90% of my life revolving around the piano. How could mere food leave an impression? That piano first principle began to weaken after I became a senior, after happiness collided with reality and caused a massive explosion. I realized then for the first time that the emptiness in my heart, which could only be filled by clinging to the piano for nearly 18 hours a day, could be replaced by other activities. I even considered streaming as an option to compromise with reality. What led me to discover that option was a broadcast by a graduate I found by chance. At that time, Acklert had stopped uploading videos, so I didn't know what to watch and was wandering aimlessly through live streams. By chance, I came across someone who had graduated from our university and became hugely successful after switching to broadcasting. Throughout the broadcast, that person looked very happy. They joyfully played songs requested by viewers, occasionally laughing along with playful donations. Sometimes other musicians would visit for collaborations. Seniors from Hanny University and world-famous musicians would visit and liven up the atmosphere. Spending 6 to 8 hours a day talking only about music with viewers, and the day would be over. I thought it seemed like quite a happy life. If the money from broadcasting wasn't enough, I could make up for it by working as an accompanist. If I felt lonely, I could just call Baek Chunga for a drink. Living a life that was neither abundant nor lacking. That was my wish as a 23-year-old senior. Delicious, but perhaps an abundant life was more extraordinary than I expected. The talk of pursuing small happinesses might not have been a compromise, but merely self-consolation of someone who had given up. Maybe I just didn't know because I'd spent my whole life playing the piano. After all, driving along the west coast in a convertible was amazing. And the blue crab stew served at the seafood restaurant overlooking the sea was divine and unbeatable. Delicious. I get it, so keep it down. The middle-aged people at the tables around us heard my voice and smiled, finding it cute. Have you been eating this delicious food all by yourself until now? I brought you along, didn't I? I mean before. I took you before too. Oh, right. I couldn't understand what the point of this back and forth was. I was just chewing on the crab meat soaked in broth, feeling happy and enjoying the moment, experiencing a happiness similar to when I play the piano. Sorry, piano. But it's okay, right? You have Siwoo by your side. I'm fortunate there are two of me in this world. Right. Ah, that guy is sick right now. Ugh. The idea of learning to be an alpha male from Song Seong-hyuk was good, but I felt a strange sense of guilt for keeping him company in Chowon's body for his sake. That guy must be groaning at home right now. Our next scheduled meeting is next Monday. There are still more than 3 days left. You'd think there's no time or date when it comes to taking care of oneself, but I've already and willingly progressed quite far in my relationship with Siwoo. I'm now at risk of losing the hierarchy battle with him. I can't lose the hierarchy battle. If he stops listening to me, that would be truly desperate. To save myself, I need to distance myself from myself. Nothing could be more frustrating. How can I decisively take control? If I switch to Chowan mode to deal with Young Siwoo, I might end up moving too fast while trying to take control. If I continue in Young Siwoo mode, I'll obviously lose control while maximizing familiarity and sense of kinship. Or should I just overwhelm him with money? No, that would only deepen Young Siwoo's inferiority complex. He already thinks Min Chawan is someone who wouldn't fall for him even if he tried 10 times. A way to keep an appropriate distance while still taking care of everything that needs to be taken care of. Such a method, I can't think of one. I'm not particularly fond of alcohol, but I had it a few times to please our professor, going along with the atmosphere. Because of that, my desire to drink usually rises when I have a lot to think about, like now. The thoughts I want aren't coming to mind. Everyone around me is drinking. I turned to Song Seong-hyuk, who was sipping soju, and shook the empty glass next to me. Never mind that, give me a drink too. What? I said give me a drink. Song Seong-hyuk took out his alien registration card from his wallet and showed it to me. The dramatically swept back bangs, like when he was in competitions, were impressive. Why are you suddenly showing me that? Do you have one of these? Of course Min Chawan is a minor. And being a foreigner, she doesn't even have an ID card. Don't say I don't. When are you going to get one? Get what? Song Seong-hyuk's mouth fell open. I can't see well, but he looks surprised. Aren't you staying in Korea? Yes. Then you need to get one. Get what? Song Seong-hyuk pointed at the alien registration card he was holding, looking exasperated. I tilted my head. Just because your father is Korean and you have a Korean name doesn't mean you've completely lost your identity. This time I tilted my head the other way. What's wrong? Song Seong-hyuk pointed at his dark golden hair with his finger. Then he pointed at my hair. Oh, I'm joking. Your expression and tone just now were definitely not joking. It was a joke. If you were the type who could control your expressions that well, I might have believed you. Anyway, it was a joke. You're so stubborn. I completely forgot that apart from her hair and eyes, she looks Korean, and even her name is Korean style. Surprisingly, Min Chawan is an Austrian citizen, just like Song Seong-hyuk. Of course, someone who's lived in Korea all their life wouldn't understand being suddenly told to get an alien registration card. You didn't really forget your name, did you? Unbelievable, really. No, I didn't forget. What is it then? Don't take out your passport. So she has a real name. I didn't know that. Since she's Austrian, is it German style? There's no way to know except by guessing. This wasn't even in the Min Chawan #26 guidebook that King HWI showed me. The only thing that comes to mind is Lady Acklert. Even though I know that's just Strelka spelled backwards. Ah, yes, Astrid. Impressive that you remember that much. I was truly amazed by Song Seong-hyuk's response just now. He intercepted my answer at the perfect moment to avoid giving Chawan away. It's an impressive level. Is this what being an alpha male means? So her original name was Astrid. Astrid. That's a pretty name too. It probably means beautiful or pretty or something like that. I almost failed the ideological verification, but Song Seong-hyuk, even you wouldn't know that the name Min Chawan consists of the characters for colorful Chinese letter and beauty Chinese letter. Someone who speaks Korean slowly couldn't possibly know Chinese characters. I mixed the crab broth with rice using my spoon. 1 bite, 2 bites. It's so delicious it just goes down smoothly. It goes down so smoothly that I want to drink alcohol. The sadness of not being able to touch it because I'm a minor. I'll drink everything in the minibar when I get back to the hotel. as I wistfully watched Song Seong-hyuk sipping his soju. Suddenly, outside my field of vision, I noticed his white convertible parked in the restaurant's yard in the darkness. Come to think of it, what about driving? Surely Song Seong-hyuk isn't planning to drive drunk. Is he planning to take a dive into the West Sea Dragon Palace with me? Feeling anxious, I grabbed Song Seong-hyuk's glass as he continued to drink and asked, I told you, you can't. Not that. What about driving? Driving? Yes. We came by car. With eyes slightly relaxed from drinking, he turned his head to glance at the car in the yard. So we did. You crazy bastard. What's the big deal? We can just call a designated driver. In a two-seater with a designated driver, one person you can take a taxi. Ah, that's the solution. No, wait, he was planning to just send Chawan off in a taxi in the middle of the night. I should definitely not learn such bad behavior. Or, we could find a place nearby to stay the night. Silence fell for a while. Just as I was beginning to think maybe all alpha males are psychopaths, he flicked my forehead and clicked his tongue. Ouch. Don't look at me like that. I'm the one rejecting you. Just take a taxi home quietly. Not only does he make my heart drop, but he also flicks Chawan's precious forehead. I couldn't stand it anymore. I stood up abruptly and mercilessly brought my palm down on Song Seong-hyuk's head. Ouch. Then I grabbed my phone and strode down the restaurant stairs. Hey, I'll call you a taxi, so wait. To Song Seong-hyuk, who was hurriedly chasing after me, I showed the flexible middle finger of a pianist. Why don't you go finish your drink first? Chapter 32, 26th issue. I was feeling good, but now it's all ruined. Today's mood graph has truly been nothing short of a roller coaster. Rock bottom when I woke up this morning. Meeting Yoon Ji-woo, absolute lowest point. Reached a peak while playing the piano, then plummeted again after meeting Yoon Ji-chang, and crashed further when I found out Yoon Ji recorded a video. Soared for a while when I got to learn Kiwon's style. Crashed when Song Seong-hyuk appeared, then rose again with the drive and crab stew. And finally, crashed again. While others smoked cigarettes, I played the piano. I really freaking need to play the piano. While others talked about their girlfriends, I played the piano. Ah, I want to play the piano. The taxi driver must have been startled by my voice, which was close to a shout, because he laughed and struck up a conversation. Did something bad happen? The driver is kind today too. Since I startled him, I decided to engage a bit. Yes, oh my. Are you a piano student? Yes. That's impressive. With gentle wrinkles forming beside his graying eyebrows, the driver pointed to a photo placed on his dashboard. My daughter too, after watching videos of that pianist's son Ariam, suddenly got the piano bug. She made such a fuss about wanting to play that I sent her to lessons, but she came back crying because the teacher was too scary. The teacher actually praised her, saying she had talent. Haha. Normally I should immediately say how cute that sounds. But for some reason, I felt concerned for the driver first. Unless his daughter is truly a prodigious genius. 9 out of 10 children invest considerable time and money through high school without seeing proper results and end up quitting. Adults have their circumstances, so private tutors and academies rarely say you have no talent, you should quit. And when meaningless investments continue, parents' backs eventually break under the burden. If she says it's scary, she should just quit. The harsh words almost jumped out of my throat, as now would be the perfect time to quit. How old were you when you started playing piano? I was 6. That's exactly how old my daughter is now. They say early education is important. But even without that, learning piano when you're young seems useful in many ways later, and they say it's good for emotional development too. Seeing the driver's happy expression, I couldn't bring myself to say it and swallowed my words. This is like a seasoned senior giving a harsh but sincere warning to juniors trying to enter the industry. It might just be me taking out my frustrations. But honestly, it's not an easy industry to enter. Even in my case, my professor kept me, saying he would make me the best pianist. But since becoming a high school student, I've never won a competition. Always third or fourth place at best. That was just domestically. Internationally, I always tasted bitter defeat in the first or second rounds. I may not earn much as a father, but I should do my best even in these circumstances. I should let my child do whatever she wants to do. The look in the driver's eyes through the rear-view mirror contained respect, saying you're amazing. That way, she'll grow up to be impressive like you. Someone who comes all the way to the West Sea in the middle of the night for good food, and who's passionate enough about something to shout about wanting to play the piano. Drip. A teardrop falls. Oh my. Did I say something wrong? No. It's nothing. I know it wasn't praise directed at young Siwoo as a person. But those few words from the driver just now swept away the dark clouds in my heart like a typhoon. Something I'd never heard even once from my professor. Recognition that you are an amazing person. I never expected to hear it so unexpectedly. I asked him to pull over briefly, then handed him the foundation chairman's business card that Gangwee had given me. It's not a place I run, but I can recommend you. Oh my, what's this? Well, if your daughter, if she has the will to continue and truly wants to walk this path, please contact this number. Oh, you didn't have to give me this. No, please take it. What's your daughter's name? Well, I know well that this foundation was built on Kiwon's dreams and hopes. But why did you really establish the foundation? It couldn't have been just to sponsor one young Siwoo. The path of a classical artist following in the footsteps of Mother Margaret Hebler, a path she couldn't walk because she was split into 25 personalities. Miss, did you actually want to become a pianist? You've never properly told me, but she says she hates classical music. She must have been looking for someone to walk that path in her place. I don't think so. Having known Miss for a long time, I can tell. The foundation was established when she was 5 years old, right? She was playing piano then. That's true. And she told me to live as I please. As long as I don't do anything bad. Even if it's years from now, please think about it seriously and contact us. Oh, thank you so much. I never dreamed I'd receive something like this while driving, haha. Not at all. So, if there are friends who lose their way and wander in the future, I must definitely help them decide their path. Because I want to create second and third hopeful chapters of young Siwoo. I'm the one who should be grateful. Like a quick wash in a made washing machine this morning, I collapsed onto the bed. I'm exhausted even though Song Seong-hyuk helped walk Rika. I was incredibly tired from using so much energy throughout the morning and afternoon. You seem to have had a fun day out. No, it was a completely unsatisfying day. Really? You look happy. I rode an insane roller coaster, but somehow it ended on an upward trend. Thanks to that, my mood improved a bit. Enough that I didn't need to play the piano. Me, costume fitting next Wednesday, Song Seong-hyuk. Okay, I now know what kind of person Song Seong-hyuk is. I've built up Yoon Ji-yu appropriately. It was a mistake to let Yoon Ji-cheng find out about Akkord, but it's fortunate that he, being a true fan, was the one who discovered it. Siwoo, what worries me is young Siwoo. Is he eating well at home? Did he secretly go to school out of anxiety? I feel like I should ask Gangwee to assign someone to watch over him for peace of mind. It wouldn't really matter if he were by my side. I'm not sure if my feelings have changed since becoming half Kiwon. I wondered if there was any reason to discriminate against young Siwoo specifically and treat him exactly the same as 3 years ago. Based on the flow, Kiwon liked either me or Song Seong-hyuk. I'll keep meeting Song Seong-hyuk whether I want to or not. What if she actually liked me? That would mean going against Kiwon's feelings. That would be troublesome in its own way. Fairness aside, taking care of young Siwoo is the right thing to do. So what if he's lower in the hierarchy? No, as his senior by 3 years, I should be the one to step back. As an adult, I should accept and embrace him. What if young Siwoo doesn't listen on the day he's supposed to die? Then I'll just tie him up with rope or physically block him from going. There are plenty of ways. I see. Personality #0 whistled and pretended not to know, saying I should handle it myself. Maybe she also feels uneasy about leaving Siwoo alone? If that's the case, why not just tell me who she is? Why drag it out like this? Personality #0 runs away without answering. I'll let it slide because it's cute for now, but if this continues, I might really go wild. I might just up and marry young Siwoo. I want to go out tomorrow too. Again? Yes. Gang we smiled contentedly and pulled up my blanket. As I pushed my arms under the blanket that reached my neck, her hand gently stroked my forehead. To be honest, I was worried. About what? I could see that Miss #26 was flustered. The other misses weren't that nervous even when bathing. It was my first time feeling like laundry in my life. You seemed to be wondering. I wondered if you'd be okay. There have been many disobedient key ones before. Exactly. Having seen that, I was even more worried. I see there was some wandering. But the long roller coaster I rode today set my direction, both my path forward and what I want to do. 1. Save young Siwoo. 2. Get satisfying revenge on Yoon Ji-woo. And most importantly, 3. Help me escape from being the black performer. I've thought about various things all day, considering the characteristics of young Siwoo as a person, and the characteristics of the young Siwoo personality sitting in Min Ki-won's body. There's no method more certain and perfect than this. I'm going to become K-Mesa. K-Mesa. Min Ki-won will walk the extreme path of classical music that young Siwoo pursues, with her own color. And of course, at the end of that path is Siwoo's goal piece. Lists Maesba. Yes. It means the person who plays Maesba best in Korea. Young Siwoo will train Min Ki-won, who has become K-Maesba. Young Siwoo, the master of copying, will certainly be able to perfectly imitate Min Ki-won's color. That is the answer I've reached. Ganghui smiled and pinched my cheek. Wouldn't Miss be a Maesba? No. It's K. K. Chapter 33. Needy Girl Overdose. Therefore, I've decided to come by often to help take care of you. I went prepared to be lower in the hierarchy, but what's this? Wait a moment. Young Siwoo had reverted to the shy me from 3 years ago. In that moment, I gained a profound realization. Does spending too much continuous time together cause this? Although I'm partly mixed with Ki-won, our essence is the same as young Siwoo. That's why the longer we spend time together, the more my 3-year-old self instinctively recognizes it. A familiar taste from an unfamiliar person. Naturally, one feels at ease and wariness disappears. That's how walls and boundaries crumble. The resistance to speaking informally vanishes. Just as few people use formal speech with family members they've spent their whole lives with, this too is a natural phenomenon. Regular meetings are fine, but too frequent isn't good. Good. I'm convinced. From now on, young Siwoo, I'll nurse you in my own way until you recover. I'm grateful, but before you visit, couldn't you let me know? Don't know your number. Ah. Why should I have done it like you did, using the depositor's name? Young Siwoo welcomed my suggestion with a subtle smile. Besides, you always keep everything neat and tidy anyway. Ah. It seems I'd better give up on controlling my mouth. Let him misunderstand if he wants. What can I do? I don't usually talk much. While I was lost in thought, Siwoo surprisingly spoke first. So, even if the conversation breaks off abruptly, I'd appreciate your understanding. Oh, my 3-year-old self. Making such a brave statement. It took me over a month after meeting Ki-won to finally talk like this. Your progress is too fast. But even so, it's nothing compared to Song Seong-hyuk. That guy knows way too much about Kiwon. It's fortunate I didn't know what if I had known Kiwon was this close with Song Seong-hyuk, and that they weren't siblings but just acquaintances. Since I was at the peak of my patheticness back then, the moment I heard that, I would have given up on Kiwon and locked myself in the practice room. Already struggling with various issues, I would have fallen into self-loathing with my wild delusions. Thinking I was just wasting time with someone who already had a boyfriend, I would have spiraled into depression. Creating every possible dark history, I would have walked around with "I'm the most miserable and suffering person in the world" written all over my face. I should have been grateful that I didn't use social media. You don't like it, right? Someone lacking confidence like me, hey? Why are you crawling into a hole by yourself? I never told you to go in there. What are you talking about? I haven't said anything yet. No, just the silence was getting long. I was just thinking about what to eat for lunch. Hearing that, Siwoo burst into laughter. Ah, ouch. He lay back down, saying his ribs hurt. What a fool I am. Didn't I tell you not to apologize? Now you're doing it in sentences? Pathetic. Well, it's not easy to fix. But don't imagine things when you're not making eye contact and conversing with someone. People who live in their own world easily misunderstand others' thoughts. Seeing someone simply thinking about what to say, they worry, was what I said boring? When someone just happens to look at them, they needlessly worry, did I do something wrong? They overreact to casual, meaningless remarks with "that's not true." These are all from personal experience. Before my enlightenment, I was truly a pathetic man. First, sit here. Can't I lie down today? You've rested well for 2 days. You won't die from sitting a bit. Come here. You need to practice interacting with people. The initiative I almost lost at the mart still seemed to be precariously in my hands, though it could shift at any moment. But that's okay. It can shift. Since I'm more mature, I can embrace it like an adult. Tolerance, consideration, these are things only mature people can do. To converse properly without feeling intimidated. First, you need to be able to look straight into the other person's eyes. What are you doing? Just a moment, I need time to prepare. Prepare what? What preparation do you need to look at someone? Siwoo's eyes darted around. Somehow, I think I know when young Siwoo tries to take control. He jumps right out when I pull a Baek Chunga move. This doesn't mean I resemble Baek Chunga, but rather that I'm acting like her when continuously throwing questions. She was truly a question mark ghost. If she had played League of Conceal instead of piano, she could have become a famous streamer known for her pinging skills. And she didn't just use them when curious. Whenever I said anything, it was "Why do you do that, teacher? Why should I do that? I don't think so. You're really strange. Just recalling it makes me dizzy. I might get neurosis." Young Siwoo must be trying to establish discipline for the same reason he doesn't want to Baek Chungas. Okay, I'm ready. After staring at the wall for a while to prepare himself, Siwoo straightened his posture and fixed his gaze on my eyes. Since I had been focusing on his pupils all along, I just blinked without moving. They say human faces aren't perfectly symmetrical. Indeed, looking straight at him like this feels completely different from looking in a mirror. So this is how I looked to Kiwon. Not bad, right? I think I look better than when I see myself in the mirror after a bath. Of course, still not as handsome as that bastard Song Seong-hyuk with his haircut. Ugh. While I was lost in all sorts of thoughts, Siwoo turned away with a flushed face. He must be thrilled to stare at his first love's face. Kiwon must be quite the beauty. What's wrong? Nothing. I felt mischievous and wanted to ask if he was okay, but I refrained, fearing I'd become like Baek Chunga if I asked again. Even I, who has become Kiwon, am evolving to match young Siwoo. This is excellent progress. Step by step like this, we'll naturally hold hands, link arms, and go out together. I mean, I hope it turns out that way. Not that I want to do those things. Anyway, what Young Si-woo wants most is to promise a future with Ki-won. After all, he's one of the two candidates to be Ki-won's husband, right? If this isn't an opportunity, what is? Right. I can't do it, but try to hold on for 3 years. Before then, I'll find out somehow who exactly Min Ki-won likes. If I fail, I'll at least make you an alpha male, playing piano well, winning competitions, and able to get a beautiful wife. Let's try once more. Come on. Young Si-woo surprisingly suggests it first. I look into his pupils again. Out of boredom, I stick out my tongue once. I also slightly turn my head while maintaining eye contact. Si-woo chuckles and tries to follow my movements slightly. What are you, a child? Following everything I do. It might have helped a little. Not a little, but a lot. Do you think it's common for someone this pretty to look at you like this? At those words, Si-woo stared at me with a dumbfounded expression for a while. Ah, ahaha. Ack. Kik-hack, you're right. You are very pretty. When I said it, I thought I was simply complimenting Ki-won. But when Young Si-woo pointed it out, boom. My face flushed with heat. It's true that she's pretty, but maybe I went too far just now. This might have been more harmful than helpful to Ki-won's image. Thank you. You don't need to be so considerate. It's nothing. Children are always thirsty for love, praise, and attention. That's why I also tried my hardest to receive praise from professors who were like parents to me. But my professor was stingy with praise. For 14 years, I inflated my dreams of being recognized for my performance. But inside, I was always empty like a bottomless jar. The reason I fell completely for Yoon Ji-yoo was because she properly exploited that deficiency in me. In the end, I had big dreams, but became an empty being without anyone to lift my giant hot air balloon. I believed no one would ever fill this void inside me. I used to think negatively that even Ki-won, who was once my light, would be unable to do so. No, you're incredibly kind. People like you are rare. Haha. But there was someone. Honestly, I thought I'd be fine alone. I just hadn't realized it. Someone existed in this world where I had become Min Ki-won. But indeed, having someone by my side makes me feel much more at ease. I seem to have fewer negative thoughts than usual. Is that so? There was one person who met all the conditions. My perfect understander. You're truly a kind person. There was one monster full of praise and gratitude enough to embarrass the listener. Take it easy. It wasn't something worthy of such praise, no. The hot air balloon that I thought no one could lift begins to inflate. I've seen people like me before, right? People who suffer alone while saying they're fine. That's why you take care of me more. I can tell. Your every action shows understanding. Gradually, it raises its large head toward the sky. You know so well how to take care of others without hurting them. Floating, bobbing up. Chapter 34, That's Not It. You've been doing well enough. Don't belittle your efforts. There will surely be someone who understands you. The monologue I let slip in resignation was actually what I wanted to hear myself. I don't need anyone's help. I'm fine on my own. I've been doing well by myself. Since I'm used to solitude, I'll be able to live well if I just keep going like this. The repeated assurance that being alone was fine was actually just an echo filled with lies. I was lonely. I wished someone would stay by my side. Always, always. I spent nights awake thinking that way alone. Falling asleep as if passing out from exhaustion was because I couldn't bear the emptiness before sleep otherwise. I'm embarrassed to say it myself, but I can't count how many times I wished Ki-won would be beside me when I opened my eyes. But I had been indebted to Professor Baek Jung-eon for 20 years. And I had been indebted to the Kangwi Foundation, which I didn't know Kiwon owned, for 8 years. I had to become stronger. I couldn't depend on anyone. I couldn't remain a child even after becoming an adult. So I forcibly endured by gritting my teeth. The loneliness. I didn't want to show my suffering to anyone but myself. Because I thought no one would understand. Because I thought it might seem like boasting. I don't know how many times I swallowed my words after almost speaking them. I resolved over and over that I would bear all my negative emotions alone forever. That I would only show my best side to others. Nothing changed even after becoming Min Kiwon, since I was 3 years ahead of my past self. Of course I should lead and take care of him from the front. Since I was already worn down anyway, since I was fine. Thinking that way, I concealed, hid, and pretended to be fine in front of Siwoo. This might sound strange, but when I'm with you, Kiwon, it feels like I've reunited with a long-lost twin. If the other person is myself. If it's someone who can understand me perfectly. Well, I mean, it might have been a mistake for you. But considering what you did when you came to my house last time, in many ways, you're similar to me. I mean, I'm not trying to force a connection between us or anything. It's just the mask, the persona I usually wear in front of people. Do I really need to keep wearing it? I also, when I'm overthinking things, I listen to classical music while bathing. And the music you were playing during your bath was exactly the music I wanted to listen to. Well, you might have thought differently. But that's how I felt. The only person in this world who could understand me with all my secrets. It was myself. It was Young Siwoo standing before me. Young Siwoo. Yes. Since we're on the topic, should we become sworn siblings? Forget about the balance between Song Seong-hyuk and Young Siwoo. I simply wanted to become closer to Young Siwoo. I couldn't just remain as friends who met after a long time. The owner of the hot air balloon who witnessed